Chapter 3720. Emperor Li was startled by the flash of the saber. This was a supreme weapon, and Lu Xiaobai was very strong. He should have made a lot of progress after a period of seclusion. The saber was too fast. From the sound and the cracks in space, it was obvious that it was very fierce and terrifying. Emperor Li didn't dare to defend or fight back. This was the son of the king of the East region. He flashed and wanted to retreat. But at this moment, the space fluctuated slightly. Then, an invisible force pressed down. Emperor Li and Emperor Yu couldn't move, nor could Little White. Jin Yin flashed out. He looked at Lu Xiaobai coldly and said, "Lu Xiaobai, you've got guts." Buzzing, Gang Yu and the others also flashed out. 7 perfected cultivators came out at once. The perfected cultivators next to Qi Shi immediately stood in front of Qi Shi, and those who were infinitely close to perfected cultivators, as if they were facing a great enemy. Lu Xiaobai's face was filled with anger, but unfortunately, he couldn't speak. His mouth kept squirming as he made some sounds. Jin Yin took a few glances and waved his hand. The heaven and earth energy that enveloped Little White weakened a little. Jin Yin said coldly, "Lu Xiaobai, what do you want to say?" "Old Demon Jin." Little White was furious when he could speak. "Who do you think you are? How dare you treat me like this? You wagged your tail and begged me in East King City. How dare you attack me now? Aren't you afraid that my father will kill you?" "Ha ha." Jin Yin laughed and said, "Lu Xiaobai, who do you think your father is? He was like a dog under my ancestor's banner. If it wasn't for my ancestor, how could he have become the king of the East region? He's just an ingrate and a villain." "Ha ha." Little White laughed angrily. "I don't want to talk nonsense with you. Kill me if you dare, and I'll admit that you're a man." "You think I don't dare?" Jin Yin showed his white teeth. Suddenly, he stretched out his hand and slapped at Lu Xiaobai. Boom! With a boom, Lu Xiaobai was slapped down. Blood came out of many places on his body. He was seriously injured with just one slap. Little White. Qi Shi panicked when she saw that Little White was injured. In a flash, she was about to fly towards Little White. However, how could a full perfection realm expert who was protecting her allow Qi Shi to act recklessly? With a flash, he caught Qi Shi. Buzz. After that, Jin Yin suppressed Whitey with the power of heaven and earth. Then, he looked at Qi Shi and said, "Qi Shi, this has nothing to do with you. Don't get involved. If you want to get involved, you'd better ask your family's king if he's willing to get involved. Do you have the guts to get involved?" Qi Shi was enraged. He humphed coldly and said, "Jin Yin, right? I'll remember what you said. Our profound realm will definitely repay you when we get back." Hee hee. Jin Yin was not afraid at all. He already knew Bei Xian's entire plan for this matter. If the plan went smoothly, the king of the eastern region might even be killed. At that time, the king of the northern region's fame would skyrocket. With the northern region joining forces with the Kuan region, they would be able to do whatever they wanted in the immortal realms. What was there for him to fear if he followed Bei Xian? The overall strength of the profound realm wasn't that strong. Jin Yin looked at the great perfection stage in front of Qi Shi and said, "Lu Shan, right? Take your young mistress and leave. Don't get involved in this matter. Otherwise, if your young mistress dies here, you won't be able to explain yourself when you go back." Jin Yin waved his hand, and Tongshuan, Gang Yue, and another great perfection stage immediately rushed over, revealing faint killing intent. Their meaning was clear. If they didn't leave, they would attack. They might not dare to kill Qi Shi, but they definitely wouldn't show mercy to this great perfection stage. Qi Shi was about to say something, but the great perfection stage's hand suddenly flashed and slapped the back of her neck. Qi Shi immediately fainted. The great perfection stage glanced at the other accompanying martial artists and said, "Let's go." Those were Qi Shi's guards. Naturally, they didn't dare to stay in such a situation. If Qi Shi died, then all of them would die. Their clansmen would also be in a terrible state. Qi Shi was very important to them. She was a heavenly enchantment immortal fox. They didn't know the reason behind this matter, but they knew that under normal circumstances, no martial artist would dare to kill Qi Shi. It would completely anger the Profound Realm King, which was equivalent to fighting to the death with the Profound Realm. Therefore, they didn't care where Qi Shi went. They just followed her. Anyway, nothing would happen. Now, they felt that something was wrong with the situation. They smelled the scent of a conspiracy. Lu Xiaobai was obviously lured here. With so many great perfection stage experts here, there was naturally a conspiracy. This great perfection stage expert sensed that there weren't only Jin Yin and the others here. There were also a few faintly discernible auras. It was very likely that there were a few extremely powerful great perfection stage experts hiding nearby. What were so many great perfection stage experts doing here? Did they have nothing to do after eating their fill? Jin Yin clearly said that the Profound Realm couldn't get involved in this matter. Furthermore, he dared to injure Lu Xiaobai. Wasn't he afraid of the Eastern Region King's revenge? Could it be that he was tired of living? Jin Yin obviously wasn't tired of living. With this deduction, even the great perfection stage expert of the Profound Realm felt afraid. If Jin Yin dared to do this, it was very likely that they were secretly plotting to get rid of the Eastern Region King. This matter was too big. They really couldn't get involved. Not to mention the Profound Realm King. What kind of existence was the Eastern Region King? Was it so easy to get rid of the Eastern Region King? If they didn't have the confidence, would they dare to do this? If they had the confidence, then this matter was really big. This matter wasn't something that the Northern Region King could do alone. There must be other experts involved. The great perfection stage of the Profound Realm left quickly and didn't dare to stay. He directly flew towards the immortal domain. After leaving the ancient Rhino realm, he took out his battleship and quickly disappeared in the distant void. Lu Xiaobai had been suppressed all this time. His eyes were filled with anger and a trace of surprise. He wasn't stupid, but his personality was more straightforward. He finally felt that something was wrong. Jin Yin and the others brought the hostage from far away. It seemed that they wanted to lure him here. After they lured him here, they directly suppressed him and even injured him. This matter was big. They were prepared to completely fall out with the Eastern region. Since they dared to fall out with him, they must have something to rely on. He hadn't broken through to the great perfection stage. For those experts, he was nothing. If he couldn't break through to the great perfection stage, he was just an ant. Therefore, Beixian definitely wasn't targeting him. It went without saying who he was targeting. PFFF, blood suddenly spurted out of Little White's mouth. Then, his aura suddenly increased. His body shone with white light, and he suddenly changed back to his original form. Then, a huge phantom appeared above his head. His stomach expanded and contracted, and he breathed out a stream of air towards Jin Yin. Heaven swallowing divine skill. Little White actually forcefully changed back to his original form under the suppression of the Great Perfection stage. Moreover, he brazenly used the heaven-swallowing divine skill against a Great Perfection stage expert. He didn't want to kill Jin Yin. Instead, he wanted to anger Jin Yin so that Jin Yin would kill him. He looked carefree on the surface, but he knew that although the Eastern Region King seemed to be indifferent to him, the Eastern Region King actually doted on him a lot. He could feel the Eastern Region King's love for him. Therefore, he naturally didn't want the Eastern Region King to die because of him. If he died, Beixian wouldn't have a hostage. The Eastern Region King wouldn't hesitate to attack. At least, he could fight with all his strength. Chapter 3721. Little White had been suppressed all this while. When it suddenly released the swallowing heaven divine skill, the nearby experts were caught unprepared. By the time Jin Yin reacted, the air current had already enveloped him. A powerful suction force pulled him in, and he was about to be swallowed into the stomach of the heaven-swallowing beast. Jin Yin instinctively reacted. A long spear appeared in his hand, and he immediately activated his divine power. Specks of blue light appeared on the long spear. The blue light gave Emperor Li and the others an extremely terrifying feeling of oppression. It was as if this was the strongest energy in the world. Consummate source divine power, Emperor Li and Emperor Yu. as well as those experts who were infinitely close to the consummate level, revealed looks of envy. The amazing thing about full circle cultivation was not just the fact that they could control the powers of the heaven and earth. There was also the source power of full circle cultivation. This was the strongest power in the world, with the exception of chief gods. Chief gods were outside of the five elements and were not within rules. There was no need for him to release the source god power of the great perfection realm in particular. All he had to do was bring a little bit of it with him when he attacked, and that attack would be able to destroy everything in its path. Whitey's heaven-swallowing divine skill was very strong, but it wasn't at the level of the king of the eastern region. Furthermore, its realm was too low. This heaven-swallowing divine skill could deal with martial artists who were infinitely close to the great perfection realm, but it would be difficult to deal with the great perfection realm. Jin Yin did not even think of a way to get rid of the swallowing heaven divine skill and directly used his spear to attack Lu Xiaobai's main body. He already hated the king of the eastern region to the bone, and now he hated Little White as well. This spear strike was filled with rage, and it used the source god power of the great perfection realm. He wanted to kill Lu Xiaobai right away. "Stop!" An imposing voice rang out in Jin Yan's ears. At the same time, a powerful force pressed down. Jin Yan knew that Bei Xian had made a move. If he continued to attack, Bei Xian would attack him. With his spear in hand, the power of heaven and earth surged in all directions, and his body broke free of the Heaven Devourer divine skills restraints. Boom! However, he released a phantom image with his spear and smashed it at Lu Xiaobai. Xiaobai's small body was smashed to the ground. Many parts of its body were covered in blood. It was a tragic sight. The image above its head also disappeared. "Looks like the old heaven-devouring beast isn't nearby," Bei Xian said faintly with his hands behind his back. At the side, Bei Luan sensed the surroundings and nodded. Yes, if the old heaven-devouring beast is nearby, he would definitely make a move when he sees this situation. He loves his precious son the most. Let Jin Yin torture him again, but don't kill him. Bei Xian closed his eyes and continued to sense, holding a jade talisman in his hand. As long as the king of the eastern region arrived, he would immediately crush the jade talisman. He and the other paragons would only need to hold on for a moment, and Kuinamo would be able to come out of the Ice Queen Palace. Jin Yin received the order. The spear in his hand trembled continuously, releasing phantoms that smashed towards Lu Xiaobai. Lu Xiaobai was already seriously injured, and after being attacked by a perfected perfection realm expert, it became even more injured. However, after being attacked 7 or 8 times, Whitey no longer had an intact bone in its body. All the bones in its body had been smashed. Little White was still being suppressed, unable to move. This time, it was continuously ravaged. It was a tragic sight. All of its white fur was dyed red with blood. It couldn't even let out a miserable cry. Only weak whimpering sounds could be heard. At this moment, many warriors of the Lu Alliance had spread out their psychic power. They had all heard about Lu Li and Little White. In their hearts, Little White was half a master. Now that they saw Little White being ravaged like this, many disciples of the Lu Alliance wished they could kill their way out and tear Jin Yin apart. In the end, they didn't do anything because they couldn't even break the divine glyphs, let alone kill Jin Yin. After a few more attacks, Little White was already on the verge of death. Bei Xian thought about it and ordered, "Let Gang Yu and Tong Sun bring Lu Xiaobai into the cave at the entrance of the Ice Queen Palace. If the king of the eastern region forces his way in, let them kill Lu Xiaobai." Gang Yu and Tong Sun received the order and didn't hesitate. They followed Bei Xian. This situation was equivalent to going against the king of the eastern region. They had no other choice but to follow this path to the end. Either they killed the king of the eastern region, or they were all crushed into pieces. The two paragons carried Little White. Gang Yu activated the divine glyphs and entered the cave in a flash. With two paragons watching, no matter how Little White struggled, it could be easily suppressed. It was extremely safe in the cave. Even if the king of the eastern region wanted to kill his way in, he would have to break the divine glyphs first, right? Once the divine glyphs were broken, it was impossible not to alert those paragons. Very good. After Little White was brought in, Bei Xian revealed a satisfied smile. Since Lu Xiaobai was captured, the king of the eastern region had no choice but to come. Once the king of the eastern region came, he would be trapped. There were 9 realm kings in the immortal region, but 4 of them came here, including the extremely powerful king of the Kuan region. This would be the burial ground of the king of the eastern region. He, Bei Xian, would also become famous in the world because of this battle. Together with the Kuan region, the northern region would welcome tens of thousands of years of peace if nothing went wrong. He would also be able to obtain the Master Artifact and search for the Master God's ruins to increase his battle strength. In the end, he would become a peerless expert comparable to Kuan Mo Perfect. Bei Xian was completely relaxed. With Lu Xiaobai as a hostage and the unique terrain of the Ice Queen Palace, no matter how many paragons came, they would not be able to save Lu Xiaobai. They could only attack by force. Bei Xian thought about it and was still worried. He ordered again, gather another 3 paragons to hide in the cave. Once there are enemies invading, let them fight with all their might. We will stay outside. Okay. Bei Xian nodded and went to make the arrangements. This passage was only so big, and with 3 paragons guarding it, it was impossible for the king of the eastern region to sneak in without anyone noticing. As long as they had a hostage, the king of the eastern region would be cautious, and it would be easier to kill them then. Pay close attention to Old Ghost Yun and the rest. After Beiluan made the arrangements, Bei Xian said, "When they are close, inform me immediately. I will personally kill them all." Since the battle had already started, there was no need to be so careful. Lord Yun was the most loyal subordinate of the king of the eastern region, and he was extremely powerful. He had to be killed, or it would bring endless trouble to the northern region. Even if the king of the eastern region died and Lord Yun escaped, many of the Bei family's clansmen would probably be assassinated by them. Beiluan knew the importance of this matter and immediately made arrangements to closely monitor Lord Yun and the rest. Lord Yun and the rest had already entered the territory of Tianyu Galaxy. They would probably choose to teleport all the way here instead of flying, just like before. As expected, a day later, Beiluan received news that Lord Yun and the rest had already entered Tianyu Galaxy. They had also arrived at an astral boundary and started teleporting. Their destination was also the Ice River Valley. If they teleported all the way here, it would probably only take a few days. Family King, bad news. 3 days later, Beiluan hurried over and reported, Old Ghost Yun and the rest could have teleported here in 2 days at most, but they suddenly disappeared half a day ago. Chapter 3722. The news must have been leaked. Bei Xian deduced after receiving the report. It couldn't be helped. All the great clans in the Tianyu Star region were paying attention to this place. Although there were no scouts nearby, the commotion here would still attract the attention of many great clans. Lord Yun would then be able to deduce some information. Lord Yun was the chief steward of the eastern region. There must be spies and spies in the 8 major star regions. It was normal for Lord Yun to deduce some information. Bei Xian regretted secretly. If he had known this would happen, he would have secretly brought a few perfected ones with him. He was worried that the king of the eastern region was with Lord Yun and would be assassinated. Lu Xiaobai was also here. What if he was rescued? Forget it. Bei Xian waved his hand. He would kill the king of the eastern region first, and then find a way to kill Old Devil Yun and the others. It would just be a little troublesome, but it would not affect the overall situation. No, Bei Xian suddenly said, send a message back and gather more perfected ones. Also, send the more important members of the clan to hide in the ancestral land for a while. If Old Devil Yun gathered all the perfected ones from the eastern region, it would be a great hindrance to us. By then, the king of the eastern region would have help. Even if he couldn't suppress the situation, at least I would be in danger. Bei Xian had never thought of gathering a large number of perfected ones. Now that Lord Yun and the others had suddenly disappeared, he felt the pressure. Lord Yun and the others had 10 perfected ones, and Lord Yun's combat strength was very strong. He would be a great hindrance to him. Once they knew that Xiao Bai had been captured, they would probably mobilize all the perfected ones from the eastern region. By then, the situation would be out of control. With Kuan and Mo around, the chance of killing the king of the eastern region was very high. However, the possibility of him being killed by the king of the eastern region was also very high. Thus, he had to make some preparations and mobilize a large number of perfected ones. Once he mobilized a large number of perfected ones, the northern region would be very empty and could be easily attacked by the eastern region. He had to make preparations in advance. Yes, Bei Luan went to pass the order. Bei Xian became a little nervous. Everything was going according to plan, but now it seemed to be off track. Lord Yun and the others were missing. The king of the eastern region would probably know soon. The old heaven-swallowing beast would probably rush over immediately. The battle would be triggered at any moment. Bei Yang, Bei Lun ordered, arrange for the scouts in the eastern region to pay close attention. Report to me immediately if there's any movement over there. After Bei Yang went down to pass the order, Bei Lun became very excited. His complexion became rosy and he was in high spirits. This battle was too important to him. It was a battle that would change his life. If he succeeded in this battle, the Bei family would rise rapidly, and his name would spread throughout the world. He would also have the chance to rule the world like Kuan Mo, the Eastern Region King. Immortal Domain, East King City. The king of the Eastern Region didn't chase after Little White. Instead, he stayed in East King City. It was not that he did not care about Little White, but he felt that this matter was a little strange. He even suspected that Qi Shishir had been instructed by someone behind the scenes. During this period of time, he had been mobilizing the forces in the eastern region to investigate the situation. Lord Yun and the others had suddenly disappeared, not because Lord Yun had sensed something, but because he had given the order. The king of the eastern region was able to suppress more than half of the immortal region, not only because of his powerful combat strength, but also because of his wisdom. Just like back then, when he went to kill the king of the origin region, he didn't just charge in like an idiot. Instead, he attacked with a plan and strategy. In the end, he won the battle. Although Bei Xian and the others had locked down the Ice River Valley, Jin Yin and the others had left with the hostages from the ancestral ground of Death God, and Little White had chased after them. The king of the eastern region could smell a conspiracy. He didn't stop Little White, because no matter how fast he was, he couldn't reach the Ice River Valley before Little White. Therefore, he started to investigate the situation in the other regions of the immortal region. Rustle, rustle, rustle. In the East King Tower, an old man with a hunchback walked up and bowed to the East King. Master, the young master has been captured. The great perfection cultivator of Qi Shishir's side sent a message. He sensed at least a dozen great perfection cultivators. Jin Yin suppressed the young master. Yes, the king of the eastern region was expressionless, as if the one who was captured wasn't his only son. He didn't say anything and pondered. After a moment, he said, "Let old he and the others do it quickly. Split them into 2 groups and return immediately after they succeed." Yes, the old man bowed and left. The king of the eastern region raised his head slightly and looked at the sky. Kuan Mo, Bei Xian, since you want to play, I'll play a big game with you. A few teleportation altars in the East King City suddenly lit up at the same time. The lights shot up into the sky. These were super large teleportation altars. It was obvious that they were going to teleport to a faraway place. These teleportation altars wouldn't be used easily. Only the upper echelons of the eastern region had the right to use them. The movement here immediately alerted the scouts in all directions. In addition to the rumors, the immortal region was already very nervous. All the major forces in the 8 major star fields had scouts lying in ambush. What happened in the heavenly chaotic star field and the Tianyu star field couldn't be hidden. Even if they didn't know the details, they would definitely be able to guess something. A day later, the teleportation altars in the Kuan King City and the North King City lit up. Then, great perfection cultivators suddenly appeared in the altars. Then, a few of these great perfection cultivators actually attacked. The other great perfection cultivators followed suit. 10 great perfection cultivators came from the North King City. 25 great perfection cultivators came from the Kuan King City. In an instant, the two cities were in chaos. The King City was connected to each other by teleportation altars. Usually, these altars wouldn't be closed. The powerhouses of the North King City and the Kuan King City never expected that a group of great perfection cultivators would suddenly come from the East King City. Moreover, as soon as they teleported, they attacked without a word of nonsense. The great perfection cultivators from the North King City had just left. The elders of the Bay family were also organizing the immediate family members to leave. They were caught unprepared. There were only 3 great perfection cultivators guarding the huge North King City. But there were 10 great perfection cultivators from the eastern region. The result was self-evident. Boom, 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 boom. The North King City turned into ruins. This time, East King had secretly ordered that no one in the North King City would be spared. The immortal beasts didn't care at all. They slaughtered wantonly. Other than the immediate family members of the Bay family, everyone else was killed. Under the surprise attack of 10 great perfection cultivators, the 3 great perfection cultivators guarding the city didn't last long before they were killed. Coincidentally, the immediate family members of the Bay family were all gathered in the North King City. This time, they were all wiped out. Thousands of the immediate family members were suppressed and then captured. Let's go. After the great perfection cultivator leading the team was done, he activated the teleportation altar and returned to the East King City. The teleportation altar shone brightly. Apart from the palaces near the teleportation altar and a few main halls, the rest of the huge North King City was razed to the ground. Tens of millions of martial artists living in the North King City were all killed. The Kuan King City was slightly better. Kuan Mo didn't mobilize the Kuan race's formidable martial artists. Thus, there were more than 10 great perfection cultivators guarding the Kuan King City. Unfortunately, there were 25 from the eastern region. The process might be a little tragic, but the outcome was the same. 2 hours later, the Kuan King City was destroyed. 2 of the great perfection cultivators from the eastern region were killed. The remaining martial artists led the immediate family members of the Kuan race back to the eastern region. The news spread within a day. The entire celestial domain was in an uproar. Chapter 37:23. The East region attacked both regions at the same time, and it was a ruthless move. Both royal cities were destroyed, and only a small number of martial artists managed to escape. The rest were all killed. This attack was too ruthless. This was already an irreconcilable enmity. No matter what, there was no way to reconcile. Only a debt of blood could be resolved. If the East region was only at war with the North region, it was understandable. It was hard to understand that the Kuan King City was massacred. As everyone knew, the king of the East region was not a match for Kuan Mo and was almost killed by him. The king of the East region dared to provoke Kuan Mo. He even provoked the Kuan region and the North region at the same time. Was the king of the East crazy? Could it be that he was tired of living and wanted to die early? Did he want to go on a grand journey? Things should be different from what they looked like. Countless great clans remembered the incident between the heavenly chaotic star field and the Tianyu star field. The great clans vaguely understood that it was Kuan Mo and Bei Xian who provoked the king of the East region first. Was the king of the East taking revenge? No matter what the truth was, something big was about to happen. This battle would definitely change the power structure of the immortal domain. The king of the East region was so ruthless that it would definitely end in a fight to the death. Either the king of the East would be killed, or Bei Xian and Kuan Mo would be killed. Of course, no one thought that the king of the East region could win. Even if the East region fought against the Kuan region, it was very likely that the king of the East region would lose, let alone 2 realms. Now, many great clans were thinking about one question: who would rule the East region after the death of the king of the East region? Many great clans were ready to make a move. After the death of the king of the East region, the immortal beasts in the East region would probably be massacred, and there would be a power vacuum in the East region. Any great force could easily occupy the East region, but it would be difficult to defend it. How could such a huge territory be defended without a powerful clan or force? Many great clans and forces began to secretly unite. One clan would definitely not be able to take over the East region. In order to take over the East region, the only way was to unite and divide the East region's territory. Especially in the Southern Territory and the Mystic Territory, which were adjacent to the Eastern Territory, many great clans and forces were eager to make a move. All of them wanted to become a new territory king clan. The East region was in chaos. This was especially true for the small clans and powers. They were in a constant state of panic. The king of the Eastern region was too bold. He actually dared to attack 2 territories and even massacred their royal city. The 2 realms would probably come for revenge very soon. At that time, the entire Eastern region might flow with rivers of blood. East King City was the most chaotic. Many warriors had already begun to flee, fearing that the masters of the 2 realms would come for revenge. At that time, they would all be implicated and killed. Some of the middle and upper echelons weren't panicking because the teleportation altar that connected the Eastern region to the various royal cities had already been shut down. Even if the Northern region and Kuan region wanted to attack, it would take time. They had to attack from the outside, and it would be easy to discover them. Kuan Mo and Bei Xin couldn't attack alone, right? On the balcony of the East King Tower, a group of experts lined up behind the king of the Eastern region. All the powerhouses were expressionless, but they were nervous. Some paragons actually didn't know what to do in the beginning. After teleporting over, a few great perfection deities immediately took action and conveyed the East King's decree. What could they do? They could only follow suit, which was equivalent to being dragged in. They were all great perfection deities of the Eastern region. Usually, they didn't dare to disobey the king of the Eastern region's orders. However, they really didn't have the guts to attack the Kuan family and the Northern region at the same time. They weren't alone. Many powerhouses had their own clans, and they had to think for their clans. There were many great perfection deities in the Eastern region. The true loyal subordinates of the East King were the 10 great perfection deities that Lord Yin had brought out. They were absolutely loyal to the king of the Eastern region. More than 30 great perfection deities standing here had their own clans. On the surface, they would certainly follow the king of the Eastern region's lead, but their loyalty was limited. The last time the king of the Eastern region attacked the Origin realm, he only brought a few great perfection deities and didn't summon all of them. This was because he might not be able to summon them. Wouldn't it be awkward if he couldn't? After all, a war between the 2 realms was no joke. If they were defeated here, they would all be finished. At this moment, all the powerhouses were gathered here. On the surface, they were here to report on the mission, but in reality, they were here for an explanation. If the king of the Eastern region didn't give them a reasonable explanation, then they wouldn't play along with him anymore. The king of the Eastern region stood silently, not saying a word. The great perfection deities behind him all knew his temper and stood silently as well. After waiting for a full hour, the king of the Eastern region finally spoke. I know that many of you are dissatisfied with me and want to replace me. You don't want to get involved because of my trivial matters. We wouldn't dare. The group of great perfection deities hurriedly bowed and begged for forgiveness. The king of the Eastern region waved his hand and said, "There's no need to explain anything. I just want to say that this matter wasn't started by me. Little White was captured by them, so I could only give them a tooth for a tooth. If you don't want to get involved in the following matters, you can immediately withdraw and make an announcement that you were coerced into this matter and have nothing to do with it. Or you can denounce me. What if I ask you to reduce the risk? If I win this time, I won't pursue the matter. If I die in battle, I will definitely find a way to kill either Kuan Mo or Bei Xian. At that time, there will definitely be a super powerhouse coming to occupy the Eastern region. You can just rely on him. Realm King, I'll go with you." A great perfection deity immediately expressed his stance. He grinned wildly and said, "I'll follow the clan king for the rest of my life. Even if I die, it'll be worth it. It's no big deal. I've already settled the clan, so I can happily follow the Realm King in a battle. Realm King, a brawny man with red hair, said in a low voice, "Our eastern region has suppressed half of the celestial realm for hundreds of thousands of years. This time, we're even challenging two realms. How can I, old ho, miss such a grand occasion? On the path of martial arts, death is fate. There's nothing much to say. One word, fight." Following that, a few more great perfection deities expressed their stance, but the rest were silent. They had many hot-blooded youths. A few words could sway them to the point of being on steroids. This was not a game. Most importantly, there was Kuan Mo. Back then, the king of the eastern region had almost been killed by Kuan Mo. Could the king of the eastern region be a match for Kuan Mo now? Of the 30 or so great perfection deities, 11 finally spoke. The rest did not speak and lowered their heads, clearly unwilling to get involved in this matter. The king of the eastern region waved his hand, and those great perfection deities who did not speak retreated. They then quickly teleported out of East King City. After the group of great perfection deities left, the king of the eastern region spoke again. "All of you, go back and prepare. We'll depart in 10 days. Those who want to come can come. Those who don't, I won't force you, nor will I blame you. We're all old brothers, so you know my personality. Go." Yes. The 11 great perfection deities quickly retreated to prepare. Of course, no one knew how many great perfection deities would follow the king of the eastern region to battle. What if these 11 great perfection deities went back on their word? As expected, 10 days later, only 8 of the 11 great perfection deities came, including the 2 from East King City. There were a total of 10 great perfection deities. The king of the eastern region was very satisfied. He did not need to make any arrangements, because he did not have a clan and only had one son. If he won, then the entire eastern region would still be his. If he lost, then what was there to arrange? Chapter 37:24. What? Outside the Ice River Valley, Bei almost exploded when he received the news from the northern region. He stared at Bei Luan and roared, "Are you sure the news is accurate?" Bei Luan's face was full of anger and hatred. He said sorrowfully, "Tribe King, do you think I would dare to say such things? The news has been confirmed. Not only us, but the Kuan King city has also suffered. The city has been destroyed, and many direct descendants of the Kuan race have been captured. Is the old heaven swallowing beast crazy?" Bei could no longer maintain his poise. He stood up and paced back and forth on the mountain peak. Murderous aura surged from his body as he murmured, "This old beast doesn't want to live anymore? He doesn't want a son anymore? Does he want to drag us down with him?" After pacing twice, he turned and asked, "How many of the race have been captured and killed?" "A lot." Bei Luan blinked and said, "The North King city has been destroyed. About 10 million people in the city have been killed. Tens of thousands of direct descendants have died, and thousands of core descendants have been captured." At first, Bei thought that only a portion had been slaughtered. After hearing this news, his lips trembled and his eyes turned red. He was like a wild beast that was about to go crazy. He raised his head and roared, "Old beast, I swear I won't rest until I kill you. I swear I won't rest until I kill you." "Bei Luan," Bei suddenly roared, "bring the little heaven-swallowing beast out. I want to skin him alive and cut his son into pieces. Otherwise, I won't be able to vent my hatred." A terrifying murderous aura suddenly erupted from Bei. This murderous aura enveloped a radius of 10,000 miles. The hostages in the Ice River Valley were all shrouded by the murderous aura. They were all trembling in fear, like rabbits encountering their natural enemy. It made them feel fear from the depths of their souls. Emperor Li and the others were also frightened. How could they withstand the murderous aura released by the king of the northern region? Some great perfection deities were also afraid that the enraged king of the northern region would vent his anger on them. "Tribe King, calm down." Bei Luan didn't carry out the order, but tried to persuade him. Bei was a little irrational now. If he killed Lu Xiaobai, then there would be no hostages here. Could the king of the East be restrained by the grim Reaper hostages? Once the king of the East Sun died, he would become even crazier. At that time, the situation might not necessarily develop as they had planned, and they might even fail on the verge of success. Whoosh, whoosh, Beixian took a few deep breaths and closed his eyes to rest for the time it took for an incense stick to burn. Only then did he ask, where are the hostages now? He didn't even need to ask to know that the hostages were basically his people, the ones who lived in the North Palace. They were all his elders and descendants, his brothers and sisters, his sons and daughters, his grandchildren, and his old mother. He had a few sons outside. Even if these few sons were fine, the rest of them in North King City were probably in trouble. What pained him the most were the millions of clansmen in the city. Their clansmen numbered in the hundreds of millions. Those who could stay in a North King City were definitely elites. Now that all these elites were dead, the Bei family had suffered heavy losses and suffered a great blow to their vitality. If those thousands of hostages were killed as well, then his branch would basically be finished. The hostages are all with the king of the East, Bei Luan reported. According to the intelligence, the king of the East should have left the celestial region with 10 great perfection deities. The rest did not follow him. Logically speaking, the king of the East should be flying here. Does Kuan-Mo know? Beixian asked again. I'm not sure if he knows. Bei Luan frowned. He probably doesn't know yet, or else he wouldn't be able to sit still. This time, the Kuan King City was destroyed, and the Kuan race lost millions. Millions? Beixian's eyelids twitched. He said, pass down my order. Seal off the news and the surrounding area. We cannot let Kuan-Mo know for now. The Kuan race didn't have many clansmen, not as many as the Bei family. There were only 20 to 30 million of them, and now 10 million had died. If Kuan-Mo knew, wouldn't he go berserk? Once Kuan-Mo went berserk, he might kill his way back to the east. By then, the king of the East might have a chance to take advantage of him. Because the king of the East had no clansmen and only one son. Even if Kuan-Mo killed all the martial artists in the East, he wouldn't feel the pinch. The king of the East could easily set up a trap and might have a chance to kill Kuan-Mo. Once Kuan-Mo died, the king of the South and the king of the West would retreat immediately. He would also have to face the furious old sky, swallowing beast alone. By then, he would definitely die. Therefore, he couldn't let Kuan-Mo know what happened in the Kuan King City for now. It wouldn't be too late to report when the king of the East arrived. Go and investigate. We must make sure that the king of the East has left the celestial realm at all costs. Beixian ordered again. Also, set up a large number of divine glyphs nearby. There's only one purpose, to send a warning. Beixian had calmed down from his rage. Now that things had come to this, there was no point in being sad. The king of the East had taken hostages, and it was very likely that he would come here. Exchanging hostages for hostages? He didn't care. So be it. After exchanging hostages, he and Kuan-Mo, the king of the South, and the king of the West would attack together and kill the king of the East. Wouldn't Lu Xiaobai die then? The king of the East was coming. Beixian had a premonition that the king of the East would definitely come here, and his speed wouldn't be too slow. He estimated that he would arrive in at most 2 to 3 months. A great battle was about to break out. Whether he lived or died depended on the next battle. He didn't have time to be sad, and he didn't have time to think about the North King City. He had to go all out to set up and win this battle. The king of the East had left. He left through the exit of the East openly. Many scouts from the major clans had seen it. After the king of the East left, the major forces of the celestial realm immediately began to move. The scouts and spies in the chaotic sky star domain and the sky universe star domain all received the message. They gathered more scouts at all costs to keep abreast of the latest situation and report any news as soon as possible. Those scouts and spies began to move. They used threats and promises to bribe some of the smaller forces or the elders of the major forces to do things for them. Many forces in the chaotic sky star domain and the sky universe star domain began to move, transmitting the situation of both sides back to the celestial realm. Soon, the major clans' gazes were locked on the Sky Universe, Star Domain, and the ancient Rhino realm. They all knew that the next earth-shattering battle might erupt near the ancient Rhino realm. The rhinoceros ape race panicked, because countless scouts from the major forces of the celestial realm had come looking for them, asking them to investigate the situation of the ancient Rhino realm. The names that were reported had scared the rhinoceros ape race king so much that his legs went soft. The other Realm King clans had also sent representatives to ask them to cooperate. Luli, this bastard, the rhinoceros ape race king, gritted his teeth and cursed. When the immortals fought, he would suffer as well. He couldn't afford to offend any of the big shots of the celestial realm. The three Realm Kings were going to start a war. They didn't fight in the celestial realm, but in their territory. What was going on? If they didn't handle this well, their race might be annihilated. The rhinoceros ape race king even had the urge to run away with the entire race. Remember the mobile website. Chapter 3725. Luli's body had recovered. After a period of cultivation, his self-healing ability was restored. When he could move again, Luli took out some elixirs and his body was fully recovered. The first thing Luli wanted to do after he recovered was to take out his almighty artifact to check the situation outside. But he refrained from doing so. It was not that he didn't care about his family, and he wasn't afraid that something might happen to them. It was just that he didn't have the courage to check. He was afraid that if he investigated, his entire family would be killed. At that time, he would probably go crazy, and his mental state would explode, and he would collapse. Because of this fear, he didn't dare to check. He could not go out now. Even if he did, he couldn't leave the ice harem. He suspected that Bei Xian and Kuan Mo were still out there. Even if they weren't, they must be hiding somewhere, waiting for him to come out. He didn't want to check. He still had a thought that could support him to move on. Once he found out that something happened to his family, his mentality would change. If he couldn't leave, he would become a lunatic. Another reason was that he wanted to learn the origin law of ice and snow. If he could master this law, his abilities would soar. He might not be a match for Kuan Mo and Bei Xian yet, but he could fight them. By then, he would be able to leave. If his family was killed, he could think of a way to get revenge. He forced himself to forget everything outside. When his body was fully recovered, he began to run around. He sped up at the top of his speed. He wanted to find the exit and the source of the cold air. He wanted to find traces of the origin law of ice and snow and find an opportunity to learn it. As he walked on, Lu Li's eyes became misty again. His mind became muddled. Once again, he returned to the state when he first entered this world of ice and snow. What was different was that he was not afraid of the cold anymore. After learning the profound meaning, he was not afraid of any coldness. Since he was not afraid of the cold, his speed was not affected. He ran on. There seemed to be no end to this place. Luli had been running in a straight line. At this speed, he could reach the end of a small world in no time under normal circumstances. However, he had been running for such a long time here and nothing had changed. There was always the howling of cold wind and the sky was covered with snow. It was always hazy. There was always a thick layer of ice under his feet, never changing. As Luli walked on, he became more and more confused. He was like a trapped walking puppet, running forward with no sense of exhaustion and no sense of return. Kuan Mo didn't receive the news. He was in the Ice Queen Palace in another world. The Kuan race had ways to contact him, but now they couldn't. Kuan Mo didn't think that the Kuan race would be attacked. If they attacked the Kuan race, they would completely anger him. At that time, it would be a battle to the death. In the entire immortal domain, no great clan could endure his crazy revenge. Therefore, Kuan Mo didn't think in that direction at all. He was now waiting for the king of the eastern region to find him. Then, he would cooperate with Bei Xian, the king of the southern region, and the king of the western region to kill the old heaven-swallowing beast. In the end, they would kill Lu Li and get their hands on the Overgod artifact. That would be the end of the matter. Once this was done, the Kuan region would be safe for a while. Therefore, Kuan Mo was very concerned about this matter. He treated this matter as his own. It concerned the Kuan race's long-term prosperity and prosperity. How could he not do his best? He focused on deciphering the sacred glyphs. He didn't care about what happened outside. Bei Xian would definitely take care of it. When the king of the eastern region came, Bei Xian would definitely inform him immediately. Bei Xian couldn't handle it himself. If he didn't inform him, Bei Xian would die. He believed that Bei Xian would take care of it. Bei Xian had to kill the king of the eastern region. Otherwise, Bei Xian would die. Outside, Bei Xian was indeed making careful arrangements. He had received accurate news that the king of the eastern region had left the immortal domain. Naturally, his target was here. He had arranged for many scouts to stand guard at the entrance to the Tianyu galaxy. Battleships couldn't enter the entrance. The king of the eastern region couldn't have flown all the way here, right? Therefore, he would definitely enter and exit the battleship. When that happened, he might be discovered. Of course, that arrangement was just a test of luck. The chances of being discovered were not high. The king of the eastern region was shrewd. Back when he went to the origin realm, the king of the eastern region's tactics were already very strong. He wouldn't charge and attack like other immortal beasts. He had fought his whole life. He didn't just rely on his combat power, but also his battle intelligence. The perfect perfection stage experts from the Bei family were slightly faster. Bei Xian had already sent a message to them, telling them to split up after entering the Tianyu galaxy. They had to find a way to lock onto the king of the eastern region's whereabouts. Only by knowing yourself and your enemy could you win 100 battles. The king of the eastern region was too famous. He had experienced tens of thousands of battles in his life and rarely lost. A person's reputation was like a tree's bark. Bei Xian had no choice but to be careful. Time passed quickly. More than a month had passed. As time went by, the atmosphere in the Tianyu galaxy became more and more tense. Although the major forces weren't very clear about what was going on, they all felt that something big was about to happen. The major forces in the immortal domain might also surge into the Tianyu galaxy. This place might become a battlefield, especially the Rhino Ape race, the Glass Clan, the Water Fish Palace, and the other major forces nearby. They were even more terrified. They were afraid that this battle would destroy them. All the major forces began to prepare their escape routes. They dispersed their clansmen and hid to avoid being wiped out. The perfect perfection stage experts of the major forces all went into hiding. They were afraid that if the major forces in the immortal domain asked them to join the battle, they would have no choice but to obey. They would die without knowing why. Anyway, if they were only asked to mobilize scouts to gather intelligence, the elders could do it. They didn't need to take the lead. When the immortals fought, mortals like them didn't want to be implicated. The best way was to run. Anyway, the major forces in the immortal domain needed them. They couldn't just kill them, right? When the perfect perfection stage experts ran, the perfect perfection stage experts of the other major forces panicked. The two major forces in the immortal domain were at war. If one side asked them to help, would they help? If it didn't help, it would mean that they didn't give them face. If they weren't careful, their clansmen would be wiped out. Therefore, many perfect perfection stage experts simply ran away. They either said that they were going to a dangerous place, or that they were going to a secret realm that no one knew about for seclusion. He's here. After another month, Bei Xian suddenly received news that the king of the eastern region had entered the Sky Universe Star region. He brought along 10 great perfection deities and swaggered in. Then, he boarded a specter ship and flew towards the ancient Rhino realm. It's good that he's here. Bei Xian took a deep breath. He entered the Ice River Valley in a flash, and then entered the Ice Queen Palace. He found Kuan Mo and reported, Elder Kuan, the old heaven-swallowing beast has entered the Tianyu galaxy. If he's fast, he'll arrive in a few days. If he's slow, he might arrive in half a month. Okay, Kuan Mo nodded and said, All right, I'll go with you. Wait for him outside. I'm afraid that if I'm not by your side, I'll be killed by the old heaven-swallowing beast. Thank you, Elder Kuan. Bei Xian revealed a trace of awkwardness. Kuan Mo was speaking the truth. If he was alone outside, the king of the southern region and the king of the western region wouldn't dare to show up. If the king of the eastern region suddenly attacked, he would definitely die. Chapter 3726. Many scouts had come to the ancient Rhino realm. There were probably more than 1,000,000 of them. Most of them were from the major forces of the Tianyu galaxy. These forces were all mobilized by the celestial region. They all came here without a care for their lives, trying to get the latest information. The law did not punish the masses. Bei Xian couldn't kill all the scouts with so many scouts here. That would offend the major forces of the Tianyu galaxy. If these forces secretly sabotaged them or helped the King of the East, they would be at a disadvantage. After all, they were the local tyrants. Anyway, there were countless ruins nearby. It would be difficult for the scouts to come in. Also, there were warriors at the consummate level in every direction. It was impossible for them to sneak in. They could only scout from afar. Bei Xian and Kuan Mo were in the cave. The rocks in the cave were as hard as 10,000-year-old cold iron. Even the king of the eastern region wouldn't be able to break through it easily. It would take time. Such a huge wave couldn't possibly escape from Bei Xian and Kuan Mo. They sat cross-legged at the place with the cold pond. Beside them were Gang Yu and Tong Sun. Lu Xiaobai was suppressed here. The injuries on his body had healed some time ago, but Gang Yu and Tong Sun had shattered Xiaobei again. Gang Yu and Tong Sun hated Lu Li to the core. They couldn't get back at Lu Li, so they could only attack Little White. Little White's bones were broken twice. Its white fur had turned red. Much of it had fallen off. It was like a cat that had fallen into boiling water. It was a tragic sight. It had been suppressed all this time and couldn't turn into a human. It could only exist in its original form. Bei Xian and Kuan Mo had been sitting there, waiting for the King of the East to come. Everything had been arranged. No matter how the King of the East came, his ultimate goal was to rescue Lu Xiaobai. As long as Lu Xiaobai was watched, everything else would be fine. The King of the East would come sooner or later. Little White was suppressed on the ground and couldn't move at all. His eyes were filled with anger and uneasiness. He knew very well that Bei Xian had only one reason for suppressing him here, to lure his father here. Since Bei Xian had the guts to lure his father here, he must have full confidence. He must have strong arrangements. He didn't know Kuan Mo, but he could feel his power. His aura was as oppressive as his father's. He was definitely a super warrior. He had vaguely guessed Kuan Mo's identity, but he wasn't sure, because there were only so many peerless experts in the immortal region, and there were only a few that his father couldn't afford to offend. After Kuan Mo came out, he didn't receive any news from the Kuan race. Perhaps he had waited for a long time, but the Kuan race didn't respond to him, so he gave up. Time passed day by day, and in the blink of an eye, 10 days had passed. The king of the eastern region and the others still hadn't entered the interface, nor did they use the teleportation array to come over. This was because ordinary martial artists wouldn't be able to detect them on the Spectre ship. Great Perfection Paragons wouldn't be able to follow them all the way. Which Great Perfection Paragons would dare to follow them? Wouldn't that be sending himself to death? With the King of the East's temper, anyone who dared to follow him would die. The Tianyu Star Field had mobilized at least tens of millions of scouts, but no one was able to track the King of the Eastern region's whereabouts. Bei Xian did not panic. Anyway, he just had to wait here. What other tricks could the King of the Eastern region play? He simply ordered all of the Great Perfection deities to gather here so that he could do it openly. If the King of the Eastern region wanted to save his son, he could only come to the Ice River Valley. Any other tricks would be useless. A few days later, all of the Great Perfection Paragons had been teleported over. More than 20 Great Perfection Paragons from the northern region had arrived. In addition to Gang Yu, Jin Yin, and the others, there were a total of 40 Great Perfection Paragons. This was a very powerful force. The King of the Eastern region only had 20 Great Perfection Paragons, which was half the number of Bei Xian's side. In addition to the King of the Western region and the King of the Northern region who were hiding, the overall strength of this side was much stronger than the King of the Eastern region's side. If they still couldn't win, then Bei Xian should just kill himself in the Ice Harem. During this time, Bei Xian had even thought about one thing. If the King of the Eastern region didn't change the hostages, he would rather give up on the Bei family's martial artists. If they died, then so be it. He still had 3 sons, so he could marry more wives and have more children. If it really didn't work, he could personally go into battle. Of course, Kuinmo definitely wouldn't be willing to do that. It would be a troublesome matter. He was hesitating now. Should he tell Kuinmo about the king of the eastern region's attack? Otherwise, if Kuinmo found out, Kuinmo might fly into a rage and say that he hid this matter from him. In the end, Xian decided not to say it first. He would wait until the king of the eastern region was near the ancient Rhino realm. At that time, even if Kuinmo went berserk, he definitely wouldn't be too far away. He would directly find the king of the eastern region. Xian could coordinate from the side and still kill the king of the eastern region. Time continued to pass. Another 5 days passed. Luan suddenly flew in. He bowed and said, "Tribe King, he's here. The old heaven-swallowing beast is here. He's just outside the ancient Rhino realm. Old Ghost Yun and the rest have also appeared. They're all outside. There's a total of 21 great perfection paragons." Good. Luan was relieved. It was a good thing that the king of the eastern region had appeared openly. He came here openly. What was there to be afraid of when the strong had the absolute advantage? He waved his hand and said, "Pay close attention and act according to the original plan. Spread the word that without my orders, no one is allowed to leave the vicinity." Yes. Luan went out. Xian's eyes shone brightly. He was extremely excited. He closed his eyes and used the power of heaven and earth to sense. He vaguely sensed 2 very weak yet familiar auras. He contacted these 2 auras and sent 2 thoughts over. Very good. The king of the southern region and the king of the western region responded. Xian's confidence was instantly boosted. The 2 great realm kings responded and expressed that they would cooperate. Although they said this, the meaning was still very clear. They would act according to the circumstances. It meant that if there was a good opportunity and they had enough confidence, they would make a move. If there wasn't enough confidence, they would continue to hide. Swish! More than 2 hours later, Luan came in again and reported, "Tribe King, the king of the eastern region has entered the ancient Rhino realm." However, he didn't fly here directly. Instead, he went to the Rhino city that is 1,000,000 miles away. Why'd he go there? Xian said in a daze, "Have you arranged for scouts to investigate?" "It has already been arranged. There are scouts in the open and in the dark. There are also scouts from the Rhino ape race." Luan replied, "At most 2 hours, there will be news from there. We have arranged for at least tens of thousands of scouts from the Rhino ape race to investigate. Don't worry, they won't be able to get rid of so many scouts." All right. Xian took out the map and looked at it. The Rhino city was just nearby, and it was just a small city. What was the point of staying in this small city? Since the king of the eastern region came here openly, why didn't he directly come to the Ice River Valley? The old heaven-swallowing beast must have made some arrangements. Xian was secretly vigilant. The king of the eastern region must have guessed the situation here and didn't come rashly. Since he stayed there, he must have a purpose. Now, Xian just didn't know what he was up to. More than 2 hours later, Luan came in again. This time, his expression was very ugly. He took a look at Kuinmo and then at Xian. He wanted to say something, but hesitated. Xian understood and sent a voice transmission. "What's the situation?" Just as Luan was about to send a voice transmission, Kuinmo, who had been sitting cross-legged with his eyes closed, said, "What's the situation? Don't be sneaky. Just say it." Balin took a look at Xian. The latter was expressionless and nodded slightly. Luan smiled bitterly and said, reporting to the 2 realm kings, "The king of the eastern region is in the nearby Rhino city. He has nailed our clansmen on the city wall. He wants the 2 realm kings to go over. However, if you go, you have to kill 10 of them in 5 minutes." Chapter 37:27. Clansmen of the 2 races? Kuinmo blinked and then narrowed his eyes. A faintly discernible murderous aura was released from his body. He pursed his lips slightly and asked, "Speak clearly." "Elder Kuin, don't be angry." Xian continued, "There's a piece of news that I didn't tell you because I was afraid that you would be angry and unable to control yourself. Some time ago, the Eastern region sent many perfected ones to attack Bei King City and Kuan King City. Then, the king cities of both races were destroyed. There were countless casualties, and the direct descendants of both races were captured. At that time, I was afraid that if I told you, you wouldn't be able to resist seeking revenge on the king of the Eastern region. The king of the Eastern region would immediately rush over after capturing the hostages. So, I didn't tell you the news. Kuan King City was destroyed. Kuan Mo's eyes turned cold, and then he immediately asked, "How many of my Kuan race's clansmen died?" "I don't know the specifics." Bei Xian touched his nose and said, "Probably close to 10 million. My race lost even more, at least tens of millions. Very good." Kuan Mo's murderous aura suddenly surged out, causing Gang Yu and the others inside to feel their souls tremble. Kuan Mo was too strong. Gang Yu and the others weren't on the same level at all. Kuan Mo suddenly stood up and walked outside. He said coldly, "Let's go to Rhinoceros City. This old man wants to twist that old heaven-swallowing beast's head off." "Elder Kuan," Bei Xian advised, "the old heaven-swallowing beast didn't come here, but set up over there. This is obviously a premeditated plan to lure us over. Maybe there's an ambush over there. Why don't we investigate it first?" "Investigate what?" Kuan Mo's cold eyes swept across and said, "You don't want your clansmen, but this seat wants them. Didn't you call the king of the southern region and the king of the western region? For realm kings are afraid of an immortal beast. The longer you live, the more timid you become. Let's go." With that, Kuan Mo strode outside. Bei Xian had no choice but to wave his hand and say, "Balin, bring Lu Xiaobai along. The three of you are to watch him. If anything goes wrong, kill Lu Xiaobai first." A group of experts flew out. Balin held Whitey in her hand. Balin released her origin divine power to suppress Whitey. She also aggravated Whitey's injuries. Not to mention attacking, Whitey couldn't even move. It couldn't even whimper. The moment Bei Xian and the others came out, Balin waved his hand and said, "Everyone gather." Whoosh, 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 one by one, the great perfection deities appeared. Kuan Mo's side had already flown towards the north without a care in the world. Bei Xian glanced at them and said helplessly, "Leave one great perfection deity behind. The rest of you follow." The group of great perfection deities immediately followed suit. In total, there were about 40 great perfection deities, and they flew toward the north in a mighty formation. Only one great perfection deity was left to guard the hostages of Lu Meng's Grim Reaper. Bei Xian thought about it and said, "If things go wrong, kill all the hostages. Leave no one alive." The hostages were useless now, but they were related to Lu Li. If things went wrong, he wouldn't want the warriors to run away. He didn't mind killing them all. The great perfection deity that stayed behind nodded. He wanted to take action now. The hostages were useless. The master of the eastern region was about to be killed. What else could Lu Li care about? Dozens of great perfection deities flew over. The master of the northern region, western region, and southern region communicated secretly. The other two responded and said that they would follow secretly. The two were cunning. They wouldn't act until they saw the rabbit. If it weren't for the fact that Kuan Mo flew out, they wouldn't have gone to Xiang City. Xiang City was not very lively. All the warriors in the city had been driven out. None were left. Those that didn't run were all dead. The city was covered in blood. Lord Yun and the others came and stood on the city wall. There was a line of warriors on the city wall. They were all nailed to the city wall by a special kind of bone spear. Their origin energy was sealed. The bone spear also had a strange power that restrained them. They couldn't move. There were men and women, young and old. All of them had their chests nailed by the bone spear. Blood flowed out from the chests of all the warriors. Many children were in pain, but they didn't dare to cry. There were at least tens of thousands of people of the Shell race and the Kuan race. They were all nailed to the city wall. Blood flowed down the wall. It was a miserable sight. The king of the eastern region didn't hide himself and stood on the city wall. The other 20 great perfection deities were also on the city wall, looking at the four sides of the city wall. All of the great perfection deities held supreme, divine weapons or various treasures in their hands. There were also weapons in the hands of great perfection deities that lit up with various kinds of light. This was the release of divine power. Whoosh, from the south, many black dots flew over. Before they got close, they felt a surge of powerful chi and energy. It was as if dark clouds were pressing down on the city. It was also as if a storm was about to sweep over. Many divine consciousnesses swept over. They scanned the warriors on the city wall and finally landed on the master of the eastern region. Kuan-Mo flew at the front. His gray hair danced in the wind. His eyes were sharp and cold like two knives. He didn't take out his weapon. He just stood in the air. He didn't fly over in a hurry. Instead, he stood in the air and looked at the master of the eastern region coldly. Sky-swallowing beast, what is the meaning of this? The master of the eastern region stood with his hands behind his back. He looked calm and emotionless. He said, "Nothing. You captured my child, and I captured your people. That's all. That was Bei Xian's doing. What does it have to do with me?" Kuan-Mo looked angry. He waved his hand and said, "Let go of my people first." The master of the eastern region was still emotionless. He didn't even look at Little White. Instead, Lord Yun and the others looked at Lu Xiaobai, who was covered in blood. Their eyes were filled with anger and murderous intent. In their hearts, Whitey was their little master and also the future hope of the eastern region. He was just like their nephew. The king of the eastern region said indifferently, "Kuan-Mo, don't talk about these useless things. If you weren't colluding with Bei Xian, would you still be here?" Kuan-Mo's eyes flickered. He hesitated for a moment before saying, "What do you want from my people to be released? State your conditions." "Very simple." The king of the east said, "Release Xiaobai first. This king will release half of the hostages. Then, when we leave the Sky Universe Starfield, the other half will be released." Kuan-Mo didn't even think about it. He looked at Bei Xian and said, "What do you say?" Bei Xian was a little hesitant. In his mind, he was willing to kill the king of the eastern region, even if all his clansmen died. This was a rare opportunity. With the four realm kings gathered together, there wouldn't be such a good opportunity next time. Once the king of the eastern region escaped, it would be like releasing a tiger back into the mountains. If the king of the eastern region escaped with his son and abandoned the eastern region, who could stop him? By then, the entire Bei family would be finished, and he would be killed by the king of the eastern region. But in such a situation, what could he do? Should he say no? There were many of his clansmen on the city wall. Although Kuan-Mo was asking for his opinion, he already had an idea. He pondered for a moment and said, "Exchanging hostages is one thing. I want to ask, how are we going to settle the matter of killing so many of our clansmen?" How are we going to settle it? The king of the eastern region sneered and said, "You want to deal with me, but you won't let me vent my anger? After exchanging hostages, you can play however you want. I will accompany you to the end." Third sect leader. Chapter 3728. Powerhouses all wanted face, and they also had a temper. Bei Xian and Kuan-Mo worked together to deal with him, and even captured his son. This made him very angry, so he destroyed North King City and Kuan King City and slaughtered many of their clansmen to vent his anger. This was the explanation given by the king of the eastern region. This explanation nearly caused Kuan-Mo and Bei Xian to explode in anger. They were also very angry now, but they had no way to slaughter the clansmen of the king of the eastern region. This was because the heaven-swallowing beast only had one son and no clansmen. In reality, many martial artists in the immortal domain had a question. How did a heaven-swallowing beast give birth to a little heaven-swallowing beast? Because there were only two heaven-devouring beasts in the entire immortal region. Without a female heaven-devouring beast, how could the king of the eastern region give birth to offspring? Was he a hermaphrodite? Or could it be that the heaven-devouring beast had found other immortal beasts to breed? However, if they were not of the same race, the bloodline of the offspring would be impure, and the offspring might not even be heaven-devouring beasts. None of the mighty ones in the celestial region could figure it out, nor did they know the reason behind it. Even many of the great clans in the eastern region did not know about it. Perhaps only Lord Yin and a few other perfected deities knew about it. These things were not important, so Kun Mo and the others did not think too much about it. He and Bei Xian exchanged glances and felt a little conflicted. The most difficult thing about the king of the eastern region was that he didn't have any clansmen, and he probably didn't care about the lives of the various clans in the eastern region. Immortal beasts were cold-blooded. Once the hostages were exchanged, the king of the eastern region took his son and fled far away to hide, constantly assassinating their clansmen. He wouldn't be able to live for long anyway. So even if they managed to kill the king of the eastern region, there wouldn't be many clansmen left in the end. Kun Mo was about to die. Why did he put down his pride and come with Bei Xian to deal with the king of the east? Wasn't it all for his clansmen? For the sake of his clan's prosperity after his death. Now that he had done this, his entire race was about to be annihilated. Wasn't he going for wool and coming home shorn? Bei Xian's head hurt even more. He was afraid of death. If the king of the eastern region escaped, he might not have a chance to kill him. If the king of the eastern region found an opportunity, it would be his death. He wasn't worried about his clan, as long as he was alive. And as long as he wasn't completely exterminated, he could lead his clan to prosperity and become stronger in the next few 100,000 years. Fight! Once they made their move, Lord Yin and the other masters would kill all the hostages from the two clans in an instant. A full Paragon-level master could kill tens of thousands of ordinary martial artists in the blink of an eye. There was no way to save them. If he didn't make a move, then he could only change the hostage. Elder Kun, how about this? You say that you want to use Lu Xiaobai to exchange for all of your clansmen. As long as your clansmen are saved, directly attack and ignore my clansmen. Bei Xian finally made up his mind. If Kun Mo's clansmen weren't saved, Kun Mo wouldn't make a move. As long as the Kun race's martial artists were swapped over, Kun Mo would be able to attack without restraint, and the king of the eastern region would not be able to escape. Kun Mo looked at Bei Xian in shock. Then, he became a little angry. He scolded, Bei Xian, what are you thinking? Come up with a plan. Stop wasting time. Xiao. After Kun Mo finished speaking, his body suddenly flashed and appeared beside Bei Lun. He grabbed Lu Xiaobai with one hand and stared at Bei Lun at the same time. A soul-stirring light flashed, and Bei Lun was stunned. His hand loosened, and Kun Mo grabbed Xiaobai. Bei Xian knew what Kun Mo meant. He gave a look, and the group of full paragons didn't dare to move. Kun Mo grabbed Xiaobai, looked at the king of the eastern region, and said, I don't care about the Bei family's clansmen. Heaven-swallowing beast, let go of my clansmen, and I will immediately release your son. I also promise not to chase after you for 3 days. If you don't agree, your son will die immediately. I still have many clansmen, but you only have one son. The king of the eastern region still didn't look at Xiaobai. He stared at Kun Mo and sneered. All right, kill him. I will let your clansmen die with him. It's worth it. Kun Mo and Bei Xian were speechless. Was the king of the eastern region so sure that they wouldn't dare to make a move, or was he really cold-blooded and heartless? They hesitated for a while, and the king of the eastern region spoke again. You won't kill him, right? Then let's kill him. Old Yun. With the king of the eastern region's order, Lord Yun and the group of full paragons made their move. All kinds of weapons flashed, and heads flew and rolled down. In an instant, at least 100 people were killed, and they specifically targeted the young elites. Stop! The corner of Kun Mo's mouth twitched. If these young descendants were killed, what would the Kun race have left? The hostages that the king of the eastern region had captured were the strongest of the Kun race's young generation. They were the Kun race's future hope. If this hope was destroyed, the Kun race would be finished. The king of the eastern region waved his hand. Kun Mo took a deep breath, suppressed the anger in his heart, and said, We'll do as you said. Release some of them first. Kun Mo had already made up his mind. After his clansmen were safe, he would go all out to hunt down the king of the eastern region. He still had a few hundred years of lifespan left. In these few hundred years, he wouldn't do anything else but hunt down Kun Mo. The king of the eastern region waved his hand domineeringly, and Lord Yun and the others took action. They pulled out the warriors from the city walls one by one and threw them over casually like throwing stones. Bei Luan and the others hurried to catch them, catching them one by one. Then, they immediately stored them in their spatial divine items, as if they were afraid that the king of the eastern region would go back on his word. The king of the eastern region had captured more than 10,000 people. He was very generous and released 5,000 in one go. The Shell race and the Kuan race released more than 2,000 each. However, most of them were children and the elderly. Only a small portion of the young elites were released, and most of them were still nailed to the city walls. After releasing half of the hostages, the king of the eastern region looked over and said, "My sincerity is here. Kuan-Mo, what about yours?" Kuan-Mo was a little hesitant. He was afraid that the king of the eastern region would act recklessly after releasing Xiaobai. However, what could he do? Did he not want his clansmen anymore? Those who were left were all elites. The king of the eastern region was so straightforward. He released half of the hostages and kept his word. If he didn't release Xiaobai, then the rest of his clansmen would probably die. Forget it. It's just a small heaven-swallowing beast. Kuan-Mo's eyes flashed, and he made up his mind. The old heaven-swallowing beast was no match for him, and he still had to run for his life. He wouldn't dare to do anything rash, right? According to the previous agreement, the old heaven-swallowing beast would release all his clansmen after leaving the Tianyu galaxy. This meant that they would have to escape for more than 10 days. They shouldn't be able to go far in 10 days, right? He could still catch up with them if he chased them. Buzz, a few beams of weak light appeared in his hand. Lu Xiaobai, who was in his hand, trembled. He was obviously in great pain. Kuan-Mo must have done something secretly. He threw Xiaobai to the side, and Lord Yun immediately flew out and caught Xiaobai. Lord Yun checked and looked at Kuan-Mo viciously. He said, "Kuan-Mo, you're a realm king. Is it fun to use such a sneaky trick?" Kuan-Mo smiled and didn't speak. The king of the eastern region finally looked at Xiaobai. He said, "Do you know the consequences of being impulsive? Use your brain more in the future. Your father is not invincible and can't protect you all the time. You still have to rely on yourself. Old Yun, take him away." Xiaobai looked at the king of the eastern region with a wronged expression. There was a strange energy in his body. He couldn't bear the pain, but he didn't dare to cry out. Lord Yun looked at the king of the eastern region deeply. Then he bowed and left with Lu Xiaobai. Kuan-Mo and Bei Xian looked at each other. The old heaven-swallowing beast didn't leave with his son. Was he going to bring up the rear and let his son leave first? Kuan-Mo and Bei Xian didn't say anything. They just waited quietly for the king of the eastern region to leave. Soon, half a day had passed. A jade talisman on the waist of the king of the eastern region broke. A saber appeared in his hand. He raised it slowly and pointed it at Kuan-Mo. He said calmly, "Kuan-Mo, I was seriously injured by you back then. I have always felt ashamed. Today, I will wash away this shame. Attack!" Boom! As soon as the king of the eastern region finished speaking, the great perfection deities standing on the city wall all attacked. The heads of the thousands of warriors of the Shell race and the Kuan race exploded. They all died instantly. Chapter 37:29. After the king of the east gave the order to attack, and the thousands of people's heads exploded, the dozens of perfected deities present were dumbfounded. The king of the east didn't play by the rules. Didn't they say they would fight after he left the Sky Universe sector? Lu Xiaobai and the others had just left, and he killed the hostages? Not good, Bei Luan suddenly exclaimed. He took out his spatial divine item and looked inside. His expression changed drastically. All the people inside are dead. All dead. Kuan-Mo's lips trembled. Many of his descendants were among the hostages, as well as the countless young people he had high hopes for. All dead. The Kuan race had suffered a great loss this time, not to mention rising up. There were no successors. Many of them were very likely to become perfected deities. The old heaven-swallowing beast was too ruthless. Many perfected deities' mouths twitched. They would be idiots if they still didn't understand. The old heaven-swallowing beast had no intention of letting these hostages go. He was prepared to kill all of them. He had never thought of escaping. He had planned to fight to the death. He acted like he was going to escape with only one goal, to save Lu Xiaobai. They were tricked. Bei Xian and Kuan Mo regretted it secretly. But it didn't matter. The young ones wouldn't be able to escape after the old heaven-swallowing beast was dead. Kuan Mo took a deep breath and forced himself to calm down. The battle between him and the old heaven-swallowing beast happened hundreds of thousands of years ago. After so many years, the old heaven-swallowing beast's combat power must have increased. Therefore, he couldn't be careless and had to go all out. If he lost this battle, not only would he die, but his race might also be completely annihilated. Buzz, a pair of pink leather gloves appeared in his hands. He slowly put them on and took out a long spear. Then, he glanced at Bei Xian. The latter nodded slightly. Kuan Mo roared at the sky and flew towards the king of the eastern region. Kill! Bei Xian took out his supreme, divine weapon and roared. Dozens of perfected state experts flew out furiously. Many of these perfected state experts were experts of the Bei family. The tens of thousands of clansmen who had died were more or less related to them. Also, many of the warriors who had been slaughtered in the city were their relatives. The 40 paragons roared as they flew out. Since Kuan Mo was blocking the king of the eastern region, what did they have to fear? As long as the king of the eastern region didn't use his devourer divine skill on them, they wouldn't be killed instantly. They had 40 paragons on their side, and there were also the king of the western region and the king of the southern region nearby. As long as they suppressed the other side, the two realm kings would make a move, and this battle would be settled. The king of the eastern region and the others didn't move. They stood on the city wall, waiting for them to pass. Kuan Mo was slightly hesitant. Could it be that there were traps in the city? Bei Xian panicked. He followed behind Kuan Mo, afraid that the old heaven-swallowing beast would attack him. He couldn't withstand the heaven-swallowing divine skill. Once he was killed, what was the point of Kuan Mo winning this battle? The old heaven-swallowing beast was about to die. It was worth it to drag him down with him. The distance between the two sides was thousands of kilometers. In a flash, the king of the eastern region made a very strange move. He waved his hand and then retreated with all the paragons. His speed was at the limit as he retreated tens of thousands of kilometers, fleeing towards the north. It's a trap. Kuan Mo and Bei Xian both hesitated. Even if they wanted to escape, shouldn't they escape towards the outside of the domain? Why were they escaping towards the north? Kuan Mo and Bei Xian suddenly stopped, and so did the other paragons. On the other side, the king of the eastern region made his move after fleeing for tens of thousands of kilometers. All the paragons made their move and released powerful attacks towards the void. Not good, this lunatic. When Kuan Mo and Bei Xian saw the void being torn apart, they immediately understood. The king of the eastern region had gone mad and wanted to destroy the entire world. Although the ancient Rhino domain was huge, it couldn't withstand their attacks. Once the ancient Rhino domain collapsed, it would form a terrifying spatial black hole. At that time, they wouldn't be able to withstand the spatial tearing force, and more than half of them might be killed. Leave this domain. Bei Xian roared and flew out of the void. On the other side, the king of the eastern region and the others continued to attack. The void of the entire domain was fluctuating violently. Because of the violent fluctuations of heaven and earth essence force in space, all kinds of strange scenes appeared in the entire domain. For example, the sea was roaring, volcanoes were erupting, and many places were shaking violently. Mountains were collapsing, and the ground was cracking. There were many citizens of the ancient Rhino domain, at least a few billion. The abnormality of the ancient Rhino domain caused all the citizens to panic. Was the end of the world coming? Many martial artists with strength frantically flew out of the void, afraid that the domain would collapse and they would be killed. The paragons of the Ice River Valley was also frightened. He hesitated for a while, and his eyes revealed a trace of ruthlessness. He was about to kill all the hostages in the Ice River Valley and escape from this domain. However, in the next second, he suddenly felt the spatial fluctuations disappear. The space gradually became peaceful, and the heaven and earth spirit energy in the entire domain returned to normal. What's going on? He didn't know what happened in Rhinoceros City. At first, he thought that a group of paragons were fighting in the ancient Rhino domain. He sensed for a while, and after confirming that everything was fine, he concealed himself again. Bei Xian had ordered him to kill this group of hostages if there were any strange movements. Now that everything was fine, he didn't dare to kill anymore. He was afraid that this group of hostages might still be useful. On the other side, Kun and Mo and the others flew out and were a distance away from the ancient Rhino domain. After waiting for a while, they started to feel suspicious. Because the ancient Rhino domain didn't collapse, did the king of the eastern region and the others stop? Not good. Kun Mo's expression changed slightly, and he shouted, "They might want to escape. Spread out. Surround this domain." Bei Xian waved his hand, but he didn't dare to leave Kun and Mo. Instead, he followed Kun and Mo and flew around the domain. Just as they spread out, a paragons exclaimed from afar. They escaped. They flew out from that direction and went to the west. Chase! Kun and Mo shouted. He and Bei Xian shouted, "We have to be fast." They might have set up a teleportation altar in the vicinity. If they escape, it will be very troublesome to find them quickly. Teleportation altar. Bei Xian's heart sank. The king of the eastern region's previous whereabouts couldn't be found. They might have set up something nearby. If they had set up many teleportation altars, they could teleport a few times in a row and destroy the altar after each teleportation. It would be really difficult to find them here. Chase! Bei Xian's speed soared, and the other paragons also went all out. They had been tricked again and again, and they were all furious. If they let the king of the eastern region escape this time, they would probably all go crazy. Luckily, their reaction speed was good this time. As they chased, they could feel the spatial ripples in front of them. This meant that the king of the eastern region hadn't escaped far and was just ahead. Activating the teleportation altar required time, and 1 or 2 seconds were enough for them to catch up. After chasing crazily for half an hour, Kun Mo's eyes flashed coldly, and he shouted, "They're in that abandoned domain in front. They're going to teleport." Swish! A group of experts rushed out of abandoned domain, shrouded in black fog. Their divine consciousnesses locked onto a group of paragons standing in the teleportation altar. At this moment, the teleportation altar was glowing slightly, and it was just about to be activated. Kun and Mo revealed a cruel smile and said, "Heaven-swallowing beasts, you are one step too late. You can't escape." Is that so? The king of the eastern region revealed a faint smile. The teleportation altar beneath him suddenly exploded, and then the black fog surged in all directions. The divine patterns on the ground also lit up, and a powerful aura spread out from the ground. The saber in the king of the eastern region's hand lit up, and he said, "When did I say I was going to escape? Once you enter my demonic formation, none of you will survive. This abandoned domain will be your burial ground." Remember the mobile version. Chapter 37:30. The king of the East had no intention of escaping this time. If he wanted to escape, why did he bring so many full perfection deities? To keep up appearances? Was it worth risking the lives of so many of his old brothers? He didn't care about the people of the East, but he still valued those old brothers who had followed him for so many years. He had been glorious his whole life and was about to die. He didn't want to die like this. If he had to die, he wanted to die with a bang. Therefore, he had decided to fight to the death, regardless of the outcome. Since he was going to fight, he couldn't fight blindly. Everything had to be arranged properly, and he had to fight with all his might without any worries. Little White naturally had to be rescued. This was the prerequisite. If Little White couldn't be rescued, then there was no point in fighting. The other thing was the environment of the battle. The king of the East had taken everything into consideration. His battle tactics were also very clever. The group of full perfection deities were fooled by him. This was the brilliance of his battle tactics. He led the enemy by the nose. Only then could he lure the enemy into his trap. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to lure the enemy into his trap. He had obtained this divine rune array from a chief god's relic a few years ago. This array was very powerful, but he didn't know its exact power because he hadn't activated it with all his strength. His previous enemies weren't qualified for him to activate it with all his strength. Little White had already been taken away by Lord Yun, and the funeral arrangement for these old brothers had been made. They could fight with all their might. After this array was released, even if there were reinforcements outside, they wouldn't be able to come in. That meant they were 20 against 40. There were 2 realm kings on the other side, and they had the support of the array. If everything went according to plan, then the combat power of both sides was almost equal. This array was called the Demon Destruction Array. It was created by a chief god. This array's only function was to suppress the enemy's combat power. As for how much it could suppress, the King of the East had no idea. He had tried it before. Lord Yun and the others could suppress their combat power to 70%, and ordinary full perfection deities could even suppress it to 60%. As long as I can suppress it to 80%, this battle will be settled. The King of the East calculated. The Demon Destruction Array had been released. An inexplicable pressure pressed down, covering the entire wasteland. This wasteland was already destroyed, and there was no problem of it collapsing. No matter how they fought, they would at most break this world. This pressure, Kuimo and the others formed a circle and looked around nervously. They could feel that indescribable pressure on their bodies, suppressing their battle strength and making it difficult for them to breathe. Why aren't they affected? Bei Xian didn't understand. They were all inside, and everyone was enveloped by the pressure. Why weren't the king of the eastern region and the others affected? If it was affected, then what was the use of this formation? He observed the other side and found that a group of experts were standing calmly without any reaction. Kill! The king of the eastern region roared and flew over. His target was Bei Xian. The saber in his hand slashed out fiercely, drawing out a white light. The ground cracked layer by layer, and it whizzed towards Bei Xian like an earth dragon. At the same time, a huge shadow appeared above his head, and an extremely terrifying pressure enveloped Bei Xian. Heaven devoured divine skill. Bei Xian was so scared that his face turned pale. His body trembled, and he instinctively retreated as fast as he could without any hesitation. Back then, the king of the origin realms had died under the king of the East Heaven devouring divine skill. He had only managed to block it for a breath of time before his body exploded into a mist of blood. Ha ha! The king of the eastern region laughed out loud. His long blade trembled slightly, and a long dragon on the ground surged towards Kuan-Mo. The phantom above his head also disappeared. It was obvious that it was just an illusion, and he didn't really release the devouring heaven divine skill. Kuan-Mo was fearless and rushed towards the king of the eastern region. Soon, the two of them started fighting. The king of the eastern region's body lit up with black light, and a strong black astral wind appeared, enveloping Kuan-Mo. As the two of them moved, the astral wind moved as well. The astral wind had a terrifying, strangling power, and the great perfection deities nearby all retreated. Boom, boom, boom. The great perfection deities of the eastern region rushed over. 2 great perfection deities fought against Bei Xian, and the other great perfection deities fought against 2 or even 3 great perfection deities. Originally, it was 2 against 1, but after fighting for a while, they realized that they were actually evenly matched. It was obvious that this demon annihilation formation played a huge role in suppressing Kuan-Mo, Bei Xian, and the great perfection deities of the northern region. Once the combat prowess of a great perfection deity was suppressed, their strength would be unequal, and it would be very normal for 2 of them to be evenly matched. Boom, 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 a series of earth-shattering explosions rang out from within this wasteland, scaring the scouts hidden in the distance. There were many powerhouses who were infinitely close to the great perfection level hiding nearby, and there were even great perfection experts of the Sky Universe Starfield hiding. Most of these hidden martial artists were under the instructions of the forces in the celestial region. They had to figure out the outcome of the battle as soon as possible and pass on the latest situation so that the forces in the celestial region could make the right choice. In such a shocking battle, no matter who won or lost, there might be a realm king who died. The situation in that realm would change, and many large clans would have the chance to become new realm kings. How could the forces in the celestial region not pay close attention? There were also some great perfection deities hiding nearby. They were the forces in the Sky Universe Starfield, afraid that they would be implicated, so they were secretly observing. Of course, there were also some who wanted to witness the glory of the battle between realm kings. This was almost the strongest battle in the entire world. How could they miss such a battle? Unfortunately, this wasteland had activated the demon annihilation formation, and divine senses were blocked. They couldn't sense the situation inside, and only a series of dull explosions could be heard. Divine senses could be blocked, but the explosions could be heard. It showed how fierce the battle inside was. What should we do? Above the void, two figures stood tall. Beside these two figures, there was a white mist that enveloped the two of them. The strange thing was that there were so many scouts nearby, but no martial artist could discover the white fog here. Only the great perfection deities who were hiding could vaguely sense that there were two powerful auras here. These two were the monarch of the southern region and the monarch of the western region. At this moment, the monarch of the southern region looked at the monarch of the western region and said, "This divine pattern is very powerful. It is very difficult for us to sense the situation inside unless we get close to the wasteland. However, if we do that, we will be easily discovered. If the heaven-swallowing beast wins, we will be in trouble. Either we kill our way in, or we can only continue to wait." The monarch of the western region said a useless sentence. Apart from these two options, they had no other choice. They had been here for so long, and they couldn't go back before the results were out. Neither of them would be willing to do that. "Let's wait." The monarch of the southern region thought for a while and said, "I feel that this divine formation is like an ancient divine pattern. It is a method that the Master God used to set up the divine pattern. It will be difficult for us to break it. Otherwise, Kuan-Mo and the others would have done it long ago. It will be difficult for us to break it, and even if we do, the battle inside will probably be over. Then let's wait." The monarch of the western region said indifferently. He knew very well that the monarch of the southern region was actually giving him an excuse to be a coward. He was also taking advantage of the situation because he was also a coward. From the previous situation, this was a battle that the monarch of the eastern region had meticulously set up. Since the monarch of the eastern region dared to fight, he must have a certain degree of confidence. They were afraid that Kuan-Mo and Bei-Xian wouldn't be able to hold on, and they would probably be sending themselves to death if they went in. Chapter 37-31. Outside, the flames of war were raging. But inside the world of ice and snow, it was still the same. A warrior was running fast. His eyes were confused. He kept running like a machine, as if he would never stop. Lu Li's mental state became even worse. His mind had become a mess, and there was only one thought in his mind: to keep moving forward and find a door. This thought quietly grew in his mind, and it was especially clear. That thought drove him to keep moving forward to find a door. When he first came in, his mind was not clear. He only knew that there might be an exit if he kept going. Now, the exit had become a door. He must find the door and open it so that he could leave this world. Was there really a door here? Could he really go out by opening the door? If Kuan-Mo and Bei-Xian were outside, could he survive? Louis didn't think about these questions. His mind was muddled, as if he was sleepwalking. Fortunately, he was not afraid of the cold now. He was strong enough and had enough source of energy. He wouldn't die of exhaustion even if he ran for 100 years. He would only be more dispirited. Perhaps when he got tired of running, he would fall down and sleep. What he didn't know was the ice and snow around him were denser than in the distance. The temperature here was lower. As he ran, the energy of heaven and earth in the world of ice and snow seemed to be affected as well, surging toward him. This was a strange phenomenon. If Luli had a clear mind, he would know the temperature around him was much lower than in the distance. The snow and wind were thicker as well. It was as if the area he was in had become the coldest area, the source of ice and snow. His realm of magic was also changing quietly. In the realm of magic, it was snowing. Phew, the snow and wind were everywhere. The cold wind swept across the wilderness. A lone figure was running, as if he was going to reach the end of the world. Boom, 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 boom. Outside the ancient rhino realm, the sounds of fighting and explosions were more intense. There were more scouts nearby. Some warriors who were infinitely close to the consummate level also came over to check. At least millions of warriors came out from the ancient rhino realm. Most of them were scouts from different forces. In the vicinity of this wasteland, there were some void wastes and 2 other wastelands. These places were all occupied by warriors. There were also some brave warriors who came a little closer. There were even 2 scouts who went directly to the bottom of the wasteland. They were not afraid that the wasteland would be destroyed. At that time, they would be instantly torn apart by the aftermath of the explosion. The battle had already gone on for half a day. Because of the demon-killing array, none of the martial artists knew what was going on inside. However, from the sounds of explosions, they could vaguely tell that some perfected stage martial artist had died inside. There were at least 15 of them. 15 paragons. In a wasteland, an elite who was infinitely close to the full perfection realm side. The Sky Universe Starfield only had 13 full perfection realm experts. The chaotic Starfield was even worse, with only a few. Now, more than a dozen of them had died in one go, and from the looks of it, there are going to be more casualties. What was perfection? That was when one reached the pinnacle of a single direction, comprehending all the profundities of a single set of laws. There were far too many martial artists in this world, so many that it was impossible to count them all. For ordinary martial artists, emperors were existences that they could only look up to, and for saint emperors were their goal. Above saint emperors, there was still the realm of perfection, and finally, perfection. Perfection was the ultimate martial power and the strongest deterrence. In the 8 major starfields, as long as a race or a force had one perfection realm expert, as long as they did not seek death, that force could continue to exist until that perfection realm expert died. Very few perfection realm experts died. Under normal circumstances, the 8 major starfields might not have one perfection realm expert die in a few thousand years. However, there seem to be a lot of deaths in recent years, especially in the chaotic starfield. It used to be such a powerful starfield with many perfection realm experts, but now only a few remained. Who do you think will win? I think the king of Kuin and the king of Northern Region will win. Although the king of Eastern Region is strong, he was defeated by the king of Kuin before. What's more, the number of perfection realm experts has been reduced by half this time. There is also the king of Northern Region here. I don't think so. The king of Eastern Region could have left, but he chose to fight. I feel that he has the confidence to win. You think too much. The difference in strength is too big. At this level, relying on some arrangements is useless. In front of absolute combat power, these tricks are meaningless. You can't say that. Look at how long the battle has been going on. That spirit formation has not been broken. No matter who wins, I hope they leave our Sky Universe Starfield immediately after the battle. Our small place can endure such a ruckus. Dozens of experts who were infinitely close to the perfection realm gathered together and discussed in low voices. These were the elders of the great clans of the Sky Universe Starfield. They had received orders from the great clans of the Immortal Domain to investigate the final battle situation. They could not find out what was going on inside and could only make guesses. It's not 15 that have died, but 21. There was a white mist in the void. This white mist was like a divine pattern spirit formation, making it impossible for nearby martial artists to detect it. The king of Southern Region murmured with a serious expression. The king of Western Region who was beside him, had a similarly ugly expression. They both had a bad feeling in their hearts. Both sides had about 60 perfection realm experts, while the Eastern region only had 20. If most of the deaths were from the Eastern region, there would not be many perfection realm experts left on the Eastern region side, and the battle would not be so intense. The battle was still very intense. This meant that most of the 21 perfection realm experts that had died were from the northern region. Kuan-Mo was very strong. This was publicly acknowledged. Kuan-Mo had almost killed the king of Eastern region more than 100,000 years ago. According to common sense, this battle was completely unfair. Not to mention that Bei Xian, whose battle strength was similar to the two of them, was also included. Yet, after fighting for so long, the battle was still so intense. This meant that Kuan-Mo and Bei Xian could not suppress the king of Eastern region. Why don't we retreat a little? The king of Southern region was a little timid. It was also because he was beaten up by the king of Eastern region that year. That year, the king of Eastern region did not even release the heaven-swallowing divine skill, but he was still able to easily injure the king of Southern region. That had left a shadow on the king of Southern region for the rest of his life. He believed that if the king of Eastern region won and discovered him, he would die miserably. Retreat? Why are you so timid? The king of Western region glanced at him, paused, and said, I'll listen to you. Otherwise, you will say that I did not give you face. The king of Southern region rolled his eyes and did not want to say anything. The two of them retreated stealthily. They only stopped after retreating for 10,000 miles. Then, they used heaven and earth powers to continue sensing from afar. Another day passed. Through the sounds of battle, they sensed that more people had died inside. From the sounds, it seemed like there were less than 30 people left inside. Boom! Suddenly, there was a loud explosion. Following that, a long spear-light shadow pierced through the demon-killing great formation and pierced through the sky. The long spear-light shadow extended for at least 10,000 miles. Some of the nearby scouts were directly killed. A huge crack appeared in the spatial zone. Violent winds howled, and killing intent filled the air. However, at this moment, no martial artist cared about this spear. All their divine senses swept across the wasteland. They saw a scene that shocked them so much that their eyeballs almost fell out. The king of Eastern region was covered in blood. One of his arms had been chopped off. At this moment, his long saber was sweeping across a headless corpse that was holding a long spear. A head was still flying in midair. That head's eyes were wide open, filled with unwillingness and despair. That was Kuan-Mo's head. Remember the mobile website. Chapter 37-32. Bang! Almost at the same time, the entire wasteland broke apart. Without the protection of the demon-slaying formation, the wasteland broke apart instantly. A wasteland couldn't withstand the battle of so many great perfection deities. It didn't explode just now because of the protection of the demon-slaying formation. Although the wasteland broke apart and the sound of the explosion resounded through the sky, everyone was silent at this moment. Countless divine wills locked onto Kuan-Mo's head. They couldn't figure out why Kuan-Mo died. This was one of the top 3 in the entire immortal region. He almost killed the king of the Eastern region hundreds of thousands of years ago. Now, he was beheaded by the king of the Eastern region. Even the great perfection deities who were fighting stopped. The great perfection deities in the northern region looked at Kuan-Mo's head in disbelief and fear. Even before this, none of the great perfection deities thought that Kuan-Mo would die. They didn't even think that Kuan-Mo would be defeated. At most, it would be a tie. So many are dead. When the surrounding martial artists scanned other places with their divine wills, they discovered a shocking fact. More than half of the great perfection deities were dead. Now, there were only about 30 left, and most of them were injured. This wasn't the main point. The main point was that the great perfection deities were mostly from the northern region. There were 20 great perfection deities in the eastern region. Now, there were only 14 left, 2 against 1, and more than 20 great perfection deities from the northern region died? Was this a joke? Millions of scouts and experts were hiding nearby. Many of them couldn't wrap their heads around this. They couldn't figure out why this was happening. Could the great perfection deities in the northern region be fake? Could it be that the great perfection deities in the eastern region were all top-notch? What should we do? On the other side, the king of the southern region and the king of the western region were also shocked. Although the king of the eastern region had lost an arm and seemed to be heavily injured, the scene of Kuan Mo's head being cut off was too frightening. The king of the southern region trembled slightly. The king of the eastern region didn't release the Heaven Devourer divine skill. Let's see. Bei Xian can still fight. The king of the western region murmured. He didn't dare to act rashly. They agreed to help because Kuan Mo was there. If Kuan Mo and Bei Xian could suppress the king of the eastern region, they would definitely make a move. Now that Kuan Mo was dead, they naturally didn't dare to take the risk. King of the Southern Territory, King of the Western Territory, the old heaven-devouring beast is dying. What are you waiting for? Bei Xian roared, his voice reverberating through the heavens. Following that, Bei Xian rushed towards the king of the eastern region and roared, "The demon annihilation formation has been broken. We have the upper hand. We can win this battle. Kill Buzz." Before Bei Xian could finish his sentence, the king of the eastern region suddenly transformed back into his original form. His appearance was similar to Little White, but he was a few times bigger, and he was missing a claw. He roared at the sky, and then a huge phantom image that was 50 kilometers long appeared. Its stomach swelled up, and a black stream of air gushed out, enveloping Bei Xian and the other two deity paragons. Heaven Devourer, divine skill. Bei Xian was scared out of his wits. The king of the eastern region's heaven-swallowing divine skill was too fast, and the area it covered was too large. Furthermore, that roar just now seemed to have a formless magical power that greatly reduced his speed. He realized that his body was enveloped by the black stream of air, and he couldn't move at all. He was shocked. Not only him, but the other two deity paragons also couldn't move. They could only watch as they were enveloped by the black stream of air, flying towards the mouth of the phantom image of the heaven-devouring beast. This mouth had devoured the lives of countless experts. Once swallowed, no one could survive. It's over, it's over. Bei Xian secretly regretted. The old heaven-devouring beast hadn't released the Heaven Devourer divine skill all this while probably preparing it for him. He thought that the old heaven-devouring beast was about to die, so he rushed over stupidly. Now, his body couldn't move at all. Once he was swallowed, he believed that even his physical body wouldn't be able to withstand it. Run, without any hesitation, he mobilized all his origin god power to his soul, and then wrapped his soul and left his body. When he rushed out of his body, half of his origin god power expanded, forming a huge origin god wall that blocked him for a moment. His soul turned into a stream of light and flew far away. It was so fast that in the blink of an eye, he was already millions of kilometers away. The other two deity paragons didn't have that fast of a reaction and were immediately swallowed. Bei Xian's physical body was also swallowed. Soon, the phantom image disappeared, and only flesh and blood were left in the sky. The two deity paragons and Bei Xian's physical body were minced. Run! The remaining deity paragons of the north were frightened. Bei Xian's physical body was destroyed, and two deity paragons were killed instantly. How could they fight? The king of the east could kill 3 at once. If he released the Heaven Devourer divine skill a few more times, they would all die. Of the 2 realm kings, one was dead, and the other's physical body was destroyed. Without a leader, they were all scared out of their wits. Swish, 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 the remaining deity paragons of the north immediately broke away from the battle and fled frantically in all directions. The deity paragons of the east were all injured, but they were unbelievably ferocious. They all held back some deity paragons and attacked fiercely. Boom, 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 for deity paragons were left behind. As long as they didn't escape, they were basically sentenced to death. They roared and attacked wildly, trying to break out of the encirclement. Unfortunately, there were still more than 10 deity paragons of the east. How could they let them break out? Retreat. The deity paragons of the sky universe star field began to retreat quietly. The outcome of the battle was already decided. The East had won. If they continued to stay here, they might be torn apart by the deity paragons of the East. Retreat. The king of the South and the king of the West had already begun to retreat. The moment Bei Xian died, they immediately retreated quietly. They were all furious and depressed. Bei Xian's last roar had exposed them, and they also realized that the king of the East had sensed them. Their hearts were in a mess. If the king of the East wanted to settle the score, both of their territories would be in big trouble. They didn't dare to stay any longer. They fled as fast as they could and decided to return to the celestial region first. Go! The scouts nearby didn't dare to stay and quickly retreated. If they continued to watch this show, they might die. To be able to witness such a shocking battle was worth it. In the future, when they were old, they could brag to their juniors that they had also witnessed the battle of the king of the East. Boom, boom, boom. The four deity paragons didn't hold on for long. In just 15 minutes, they were all killed. There were only 14 deity paragons of the East. The king of the East didn't make a move and just stood there coldly. PFFF. After the last deity paragons was killed, the king of the East spurted out blood from the corner of his mouth. He staggered and almost fell. A deity paragons of the East immediately flew over and supported the king of the East. He exclaimed, "King of the East, are you okay? Take me away." The king of the East closed his eyes and said in a very weak voice, "Find a safe place and send a message to old Yun to bring Xiaobai here. I can't hold on for much longer." What? King of the East? A group of deity paragons of the East were shocked and shouted in sorrow. They all gathered around, their faces full of disbelief. Didn't they see that the king of the East was very fierce? He even killed 2 deity paragons and Bei Xian's physical body in one go. Why was he dying in the blink of an eye? Kiki. The king of the East revealed a bitter smile and said in a weak voice, "Do you think Kuan Mo is so easy to kill? In order to kill him, I burned the last few thousand years of my lifespan in one go." Chapter 37-33. Tianyu Star Region, Peach Garden Domain, Peach Garden Mountain. This was a small domain controlled by an old demon. This old demon had been in seclusion all these years, so this domain had been sealed for many years. No martial artist was allowed to enter or leave. Peach Garden Mountain was very beautiful. There were strange peach trees everywhere, blooming all year round. The fragrance of the flowers was very strong, and the fragrance spread for thousands of miles. This was where the owner of this domain, Peach Garden Mountain Man, lived. However, this place was now occupied by Magpie Nest. Among the peach trees, an old man sat cross-legged on the ground. One of his arms was broken, but he had changed into a new set of robes. His hair was neatly combed, and his face was calm. He sat cross-legged with his eyes closed, looking like he was meditating. More than 10 perfected martial artists were kneeling at the side with sorrowful expressions. However, they did not make any sound. From time to time, they would look at the one-armed old man, their eyes filled with endless sorrow. This group of perfected martial artists had followed the king of the East region for many years. They were his most loyal subordinates. The fact that they followed him to battle this time proved this. Many of these perfected martial artists had their own clans. However, they abandoned their clans and followed him to battle. This was equivalent to disregarding the lives of their clans. They had very deep feelings for the king of the East region. In their hearts, this old man was an invincible god. Now, the god was finally going to fall. The king of the East region's aura was very weak. He was still refining the divine medicine, a very precious divine medicine. This divine medicine was not used to prolong his life, but to grow out an arm. The king of the East region had always cared about his reputation. Even if he was going to die, he wanted a complete corpse. Most importantly, he did not want Xiaobai to see him like this. His life force had been used up. His soul spirit had been severely injured. His divine power had been used up. He did not have much lifespan left. This time, he had used up all his lifespan. The reason he was not dead now was that the divine medicine was hanging on. He was also holding on. He was waiting for Xiaobai. More than 100,000 years ago, he was severely injured by Kun Mo. Kun Mo's battle strength was unquestionable. More than 100,000 years had passed. His battle strength had increased a lot, but so had Kun Mo. If not for the demon-killing formation suppressing Kun Mo's battle strength, he would not have been able to kill Kun Mo. Even so, he had to pay a huge price. Worth it. However, the king of the eastern region felt that it was worth it. The dozen or so paragons present also felt that it was worth it. Sacrificing the remaining few thousand years of lifespan to kill Kun Mo and destroy Bei Xian's physical body was enough. This time, the king of the eastern region could be considered a bloody disgrace, but also established his supreme prestige. To be able to enjoy such glory before his death was the lifelong pursuit of millions of warriors. There was one more thing. If the king of the eastern region could protect the eastern region and their most loyal subordinates, it would at least bring them decades or even hundreds or thousands of years of comfort. Kun Mo was dead, and many of the full circle stage experts of the Kun race had been killed. Many of the core members of the Kun race had died, and the Kun race had suffered a huge blow. If the Kun race continued to occupy the Kun territory, the only thing awaiting them would be destruction. Therefore, if the experts of the Kun race weren't stupid, they would have immediately given up on the Kun territory and found a place to hide. Bei Xian's physical body was destroyed, and the perfected northern region powerhouses were either injured or dead. His position as the northern region king was also in jeopardy. The king of the eastern region was about to die, but the problem was that only they knew. The outside world didn't know that the king of the eastern region was about to die. As long as the king of the eastern region was not confirmed to be dead, who would dare to touch the eastern region? Even the king of the southern region and the king of the western region wouldn't dare to come here, let alone the ordinary families. The king of the eastern region's superb battle record would be a great deterrent to those families and powerhouses who were plotting to take over the eastern region. In addition, with the chaos in the Kun territory and the northern region, those families and powerhouses who were eager to make a move would immediately shift their attention to the Kun territory or the northern region. Perfected. The 14 full-circle stage experts looked at the king of the eastern region with even more admiration and sorrow. This man's strategy and tactics were the best, and his combat ability was also world-shaking. Even in death, he was still protecting them with his remaining power. Whoosh! 2 days later, 2 figures flew over. Lord Yin had finally arrived with Little White. Lord Yin didn't run too far. After he left with Little White, he went to a nearby teleportation altar and then went to a hidden secret realm. If the king of the eastern region was defeated, he wouldn't leave. He would hide in the secret realm for a while and then find a chance to escape. Little White's injuries were serious, but he had recovered a little in these 2 days. On the surface, he didn't look injured. Lord Yin didn't tell him too much time. He only said that the battle was over and the king of the eastern region had summoned him. Therefore, Lu Xiaobai was still in good mood. He didn't dare to get close to the king of the eastern region after he flew over. He sneaked glances at the king of the eastern region, as if he was afraid that the king of the eastern region would punish him. King of the eastern region. Lord Yun's voice was a little choked. He tried hard not to cry. He flew to the king of the eastern region and knelt down on one knee. Without saying a word, he just buried his head deep. His shoulders trembled slightly. He probably buried his head so that the other powerhouses wouldn't see the tears in his eyes. Old Yun is here. The king of the eastern region's arm had grown back. He looked relieved. Maybe this was the last radiance of the setting sun. He opened his eyes and smiled. His voice was a little hoarse. He didn't look at Little White, who was peeking behind him. He said, "Old Yun, I'm afraid that you'll have to work hard in the future." "Not all." Lord Yun's voice became even more choked. He raised his head and said with tears in his eyes, "I can't wait to continue fighting with the king of the eastern region. Fighting with the king of the eastern region feels so good." Hee. The king of the eastern region smiled and said, "All right, you are all a bunch of old men. Why can't you let it go? It will happen sooner or later anyway." You will have to face this day. Calm down. Don't let the kids see you as a joke. Eh. Little White finally felt that something was wrong. Lord Yin had knelt down and cried the moment he came over. The other full perfection experts were also wiping their tears silently. And he would be an idiot if he couldn't figure out something from the conversation between Lord Yin and the king of the Eastern region. He was a little confused. He looked around and frowned at the king of the Eastern region. Then he looked at Lord Yin, who was kneeling on the ground. He walked over in small steps and stood in front of the king of the Eastern region. He looked at the king of the Eastern region again and said, "Father, are you all right?" The king of the Eastern region raised his head and looked at Lu Xiaobai. He waved his hand and continued to speak to Lord Yin. "If everything goes well, the Eastern region will be fine for the time being. Do as I say later. Also, scare the two cowards in the south and west. I think it will be more effective. Little White, keep an eye on them. If they can break through, it will be a good thing. If they can't, then follow my original plan. In short, I will leave it to you in the future." That Little White suddenly interrupted and said, "Father, what are you doing? Why do I feel that you are making arrangements for your funeral? You look fine. Don't scare me. I know I am wrong this time. I will accept the punishment, okay? I will not do anything reckless next time." The king of the Eastern region waved his hand, and Lord Yun stepped aside. He raised his head and looked at Lu Xiaobai. His eyes were full of love. He looked at Lu Xiaobai without saying anything. He looked at Little White's expression slowly changed. Little White's body went soft and suddenly sat on the ground. The king of the Eastern region slowly closed his eyes, and his lips moved, leaving behind a weak voice. "Little White, I can't shield you from wind and rain in the future. You have to rely on yourself for everything. Cultivate hard, use your brain more, and don't let down the prestige of our heaven-swallowing beast clan." Before he finished his words, the king of the Eastern region's aura suddenly disappeared. Little White finally woke up. He rolled and crawled over and shook the king of the Eastern region with force. After shaking a few times, there was no response. He couldn't stop his tears from flowing down. He shouted, "Father, Father, don't be like this. I will listen to you. I will listen to you, okay? Father, I was wrong. I was really wrong. No, no, no." Chapter 37-34. A shocking battle had ended. This battle attracted the attention of the entire Great World. The 8 major star regions of the Immortal Domain were all very concerned because this would change the power structure of the entire Great World. The battle was very intense, but the outcome was beyond the expectations of all martial artists. Outside the Eastern region, and even within the Eastern region itself, there were many formidable martial artists hiding. They were just waiting for the news of the Eastern region king's death to spread. Those great races and formidable martial artists would start to fight for this fertile land. Many clan heads of the great races fantasized about becoming the new Eastern region king and becoming a new supreme martial artist. When the news spread, all the formidable martial artists thought they had heard wrongly and that the news had been spread wrongly. After confirming it again and again, those formidable martial artists immediately left the Eastern region. They didn't dare to act rashly. Instead, they kept sending messages and investigating to confirm the authenticity of the information. The Kuan race was the first to confirm the news because Kuan Mo's life Jade Talisman was broken. The Kuan race's clan head, who was also Kuan Mo's son, didn't die the previous time. He immediately gathered all the formidable martial artists in the race, and after a night of discussion, they made the decision to completely retreat and give up on the Kuan region. Of course, before giving up, they sent out a notice saying that the current news was just a rumor. The real news was that the Eastern region king had died in battle. This was fake news that was deliberately released by the Eastern region. On the other side, the Shell race quickly responded and also released a message saying that the current news was just a rumor. When Kuan Mo and Bei Xian returned, all the rumors would naturally fall apart. The notice sent out by the 2 Realm King clans made all the great factions in the Immortal Domain confused. Because the journey was too long, the great factions didn't personally send their own formidable martial artists over. The ones who sent the news were scouts and some great races in the Chanustar region that were bribed. The credibility of this news had to be confirmed. What if it was fake? Thus, during this period of time, the immortal domain was very chaotic. All kinds of news were flying everywhere. Before the news was confirmed, no one dared to act recklessly. If the three realm kings weren't dead, anyone who dared to show up would definitely die. As the news spread, in about 10 days, many great races discovered some clues. The Kuan race mobilized a large number of their clansmen. All the Kuan race clansmen gathered at the Kuan Demon Mountain. It was understandable for the Kuan race to summon their soldiers, but it was unreasonable for them to summon some ordinary clansmen. After another 5 days, the news was confirmed. Kuan Mo was indeed dead. The Kuan race had escaped. The number of Kuan gathered around Kuan Devil Mountain decreased rapidly. Clearly, they had entered a mystic realm. The entrance to this mystic realm should be near Kuan Devil Mountain. However, the great perfection deity of the Kuan race had personally sealed off that area, and accurate intelligence had yet to arrive. After another 3 days, all the Kuan clansmen had run away. Kuan Devil Mountain suddenly exploded and was razed to the ground. This news was confirmed. The king of the eastern region had won. Kuan Devil had died in battle. Bei Xian's corporeal body had been destroyed, and more than 30 people of the great perfection stage of the northern region had died. The eastern region was full of joy and excitement. The prestige of the king of the eastern region had reached its peak. The large clans in the Kuan territory all looked as if they had lost their parents, and the large clans in the northern territory were all in a state of panic. Too many great perfection deities of the northern region had died, and the strength of the entire northern region had been greatly damaged. Bei Xian's physical body had been destroyed, and it was said that his soul had also been severely injured. Who knew if he could still come back to life? If Bei Xian had condensed his corporeal body in a short period of time and appeared in the northern region with his strength not much different, then the northern region would not have been saved. Otherwise, the northern region would probably be doomed. A large number of large clans and martial experts had killed their way into the Kuan territory, and the Kuan territory would be reshuffled just like the origin territory back then. It would probably be chaotic for a while until a new realm king appeared. Many large clans in the northern region were eyeing covetously, and some of the large clans in the eastern region even wanted to kill their way into the northern region. However, it was not confirmed that Bei Xian was dead, and most of the large clans that wanted to rise up had gone to the Kuan territory. Therefore, the northern region was temporarily safe. After the battle with the king of the eastern region, his prestige had reached its peak. Some martial artists even boasted that he was the strongest in the immortal domain and the strongest martial expert below the chief god. Those great perfection deities who did not follow the king of the eastern region to battle were all regretting. When the king of the eastern region returned, they were likely to be suppressed. The king of the eastern region would probably reward them according to their contributions. Their territories would definitely be weakened and given to those great perfection deities who participated in the battle. 3 months later, the battle royale in the Kuan territory began. The Kuan territory did not only have the great perfection deities of the Kuan race, but also many other races. Now that countless large clans had poured in, wanting to become the new king of the Kuan territory, there was naturally a conflict with them. They had vested interests, and when the large clans wanted to rob them of their benefits, they could only fight to the death. The battle in the origin territory had already come to an end. Many of the large clans and forces that had failed surged into the Kuan territory, and this place became especially lively. Those large clans and forces that had surged into the Kuan territory not only fought with the local forces, but also with each other. It was like a group of lions fighting for the position of the king of the forest. They had to subdue all the lions. Another month passed. The northern region issued another announcement, saying that their king of the northern region was about to return. Any large clans and forces that wanted to cause trouble in the northern region would be the enemy of the northern region. Once this announcement was made, the large clans that had designs on the northern region all behaved themselves. Most of the large clans and forces had gone to the Kuan territory, and they did not dare to act rashly. What if Beixian really returned? Another 2 months passed, and a powerful aura condensed into Shell King City. Then, a figure soared into the sky and shouted coldly in midair, "This king has returned. Anyone who dares to cause trouble in the northern region will be killed without mercy." Beixian appeared for the scouts and spies hidden in the Shell King City to take a closer look. The scouts and spies sensed carefully and found that it was indeed Beixian's aura. Not everyone could disguise a Great Perfection Realm expert. Every Great Perfection Realm expert had a different divine power, so their auras were completely different. It was too difficult to imitate. Beixian's figure flashed and returned to the castle. This was indeed his original body. He had fled and reformed his physical body in midair. His soul was indeed injured, and it was very serious. In addition, he had used up too much of his divine power. After he appeared, he immediately teleported away and went to a secret place to recuperate. He was very clear that as long as he appeared, the northern region would be stable. Now that most of the large clans and forces had gone to the Kuan region, the remaining large clans and forces would definitely not dare to act rashly after knowing that he was fine. Because he was fine, not only did it mean that they had strong combat power, but it also meant that they had strong unity. The commander was still there, and all the Great Perfection Realm experts of the northern region would be under his command. It would be very, very difficult to take down the northern region. Another month passed, and the eastern region sent out an announcement. The king of the eastern region wanted the Bei family to hand over Beixian's head, and he could spare the rest of the Bei family. Also, he wanted the king of the western region and the king of the southern region to give him an explanation. This announcement was made by Lord Yun. This was also the strategy that the king of the eastern region left behind before he died. He wanted to scare the king of the northern region, the king of the southern region, and the king of the western region. This way, no large clans or experts would dare to have any ideas about the eastern region. Once this announcement was made, all the large clans in the celestial region felt a wave of fear, especially the western region and the southern region. Why were they involved? Could it be that the king of the eastern region wanted to massacre the southern region and the western region? Half a month after the announcement was made, what shocked all the martial artists in the celestial region was that Beixian actually appeared again and directly invited the king of the eastern region to fight in the newly built North King City. He would be waiting respectfully in North King City. P.S. Continue with 4 chapters tomorrow. Chapter 37-35. Beixian's challenge caused the entire immortal realms to be puzzled. Was Beixian crazy? Were they tired of living? Or did his strength soar after his physical body was destroyed and rebuilt? According to common sense, he was hiding from the king of the eastern region and was not in a hurry. But he actually took the initiative to challenge him. Originally, the southern and western territories were panicking, but after hearing this news, the 2 territories were no longer panicking, and the 2 realm kings were temporarily calmer. Now that Beixian had stepped forward, the king of the eastern region would temporarily not cause trouble for them before Beixian died. Beixian's announcement caused the major powers of the immortal realms to shift their attention over. They no longer paid so much attention to the Kuan region. Everyone was staring at the eastern region, wanting to see how the eastern region king would react. They all wanted to see how Beixian would die. East King City's reaction was huge. Lord Yun and the others were panicking. Beixian wasn't playing by the rules. Or did Beixian already know that the king of the eastern region was dead? Otherwise, how could he be so bold? They had originally wanted to scare Beixian and the kings of the southern and western territories. This way, the eastern territories could maintain stability and peace for many years. Little White would then have a chance to break through. Now that Beixian had accepted the challenge, he didn't know what to do. According to the king of the eastern region's temper, if he wasn't dead, he would definitely attack the northern region immediately after being provoked like this. The problem was that the king of the eastern region was dead. How were they going to attack the northern region? If the king of the eastern region didn't make a move, then he would immediately be exposed. If the outside world knew that the king of the eastern region had passed away, then the eastern region would be finished, and Little White would be in danger. Countless enemies would chase after it in a frenzy, and they would not rest until they killed Whitey. They would not allow a heaven-devouring beast to grow again. Master Yin quickly gathered Lao He and the others for a discussion. After a long discussion, they only had two options. Otherwise, they could secretly attack the northern region and kill Bei Xian. Then, even if the king of the eastern region did not show up, he would be able to intimidate the entire celestial region. Otherwise, they could only retreat and hand over the vast eastern region to the Kuan tribe. They could then follow the Kuan tribe and escape into the route that the king of the eastern region had arranged for them to hide inside, until Whitey broke through and had enough strength to wipe out its enemies. Then it could kill its way back to the immortal region and take back the eastern region. The 15 great perfection deities each had their own views. In the end, they voted and chose the first option. They would charge into the northern land together and kill Bei Xian. They couldn't give up their territory in the east. If so many of their clansmen moved to the mystic realm, their days would be very hard. What if Little White couldn't break through to the consummate level? Then they would no longer have any hope of rising up. After settling down, these great perfection deities began to make arrangements and gather a large number of elites from their clans, preparing to secretly send them into the mystery realm. If they lost this battle, they wouldn't suffer a crushing defeat. They would leave behind some seeds for their race. On the other hand, Lord Yin did not participate in the battle. Instead, he brought Little White into the mystery realm. Lord Yin's combat power was very strong, but Little White alone was not a big deal. Bei Xian's physical body had been destroyed, and his soul had been injured. His combat strength would definitely be greatly reduced. Also, with so many great perfection paragons of the northern region killed, the overall combat strength of the northern region would be greatly reduced. Many of Bei Xian's loyal great perfection paragons had died. If they raised the banner of the King of the East, would the other great perfection realms of the north dare to act recklessly? Therefore, their chances of success were still very high. One more Lord Yin wouldn't make a difference. Old He and the others went back to make arrangements. Lord Yin also prepared to bring Little White, who had been sitting quietly, into the mystic realm. This mystic realm was discovered by the King of the East. Only a few great perfection paragons knew about it. Unless these great perfection paragons betrayed them, it would be impossible for them to find out. Little White had been sitting quietly ever since he returned from the Tianyu Galaxy. If Qi Shi and Bai Xiaoshuang saw him, they would think he was a different person. He used to be very lively and couldn't sit still for even a moment. Now, he had been sitting quietly, staring blankly. There was no sorrow on his face. He was just a little absent-minded, as if he still couldn't accept the fact that the King of the East was dead bang. After Lord Yin walked in, he didn't say anything. He directly slapped the back of Little White's head and knocked him out. Then, he put him into the spatial artifact and took him away. He knew Little White's personality very well. He was too lazy to explain. What if Little White went to find trouble with Bei Xian? It was better to just knock him out and send him away. Lord Yin made some arrangements. Old He and the others came to the East Royal City 5 days later and handed over many spatial artifacts to Lord Yin. Those spatial artifacts were filled with their elite clansmen. They were entrusting them to Lord Yin. "I'm leaving." Lord Yin looked at Old He and the others and said in a deep voice, "Where there's life, there's hope. Don't fight to the death. If you can't do it, come back and enter the eternal night realm. I believe Little White won't let you down." "Yes." Old He and the others nodded. Old He hesitated for a moment and said, "Old Yin, if you can't see us again, help us collect the remains and bring them back to be buried outside the Eastern Region King's tomb." There was another more important reason why Old He and the others wanted to go to the northern region. They wanted to kill Bei Xian to avenge the King of the East. This incident was caused by Bei Xian. The King of the East could have lived for a few thousand years, but Bei Xian passed away prematurely. Kuan Mo was dead, but Bei Xian was still alive. They wanted to kill Bei Xian to avenge the king of the East. All right, Lord Yin didn't say much. He just nodded slightly. Old He and the others all entered the teleportation altar. There were a total of 14 of them. They were the 14 full perfection realm cultivators who survived in the wasteland. They didn't inform the other full perfection realm cultivators. They didn't follow the king of the East to battle last time, and they didn't want to call them this time either. The teleportation array lit up, and the 14 full perfection realm cultivators disappeared into the teleportation altar. Lord Yin turned to look at East King City, then resolutely entered another teleportation altar and teleported away. Old He and the others teleported to the northernmost city of the eastern region. Then, they took out their battleship and flew towards the northern region. They had Spectre's ship, but they didn't use it. They wanted the entire celestial region to know that a group of full perfection realm cultivators from the eastern region had gone to the northern region. There were many benefits to this. First, it could deter some of the full perfection realm cultivators from the northern region. After all, the news of the king of the East's death hadn't spread. Other than that, it could deter the entire celestial region. If the eastern region went to battle, then all the experts would definitely think that the king of the East was still alive and had led a team to attack the northern region. After the news spread, the entire celestial region was shocked. Countless scouts quickly teleported to the northern region, waiting for the battle of the Realm King. Was another Realm King going to die this time? Bei Xian was courting death. The king of the East could even kill Kuan Mo. Last time, he was lucky enough to escape with his soul. How dare he act so arrogantly without finding a place to hide? The evils he brought upon himself were the hardest to bear. Many great forces and clans were getting restless. They were just waiting for the king of the north to be killed. Then, they would start plotting to take over the northern region and become the new king of the north. This battle had attracted countless attention. On the contrary, there weren't many great clans paying attention to the Kuan region. The battle in the Kuan region had already begun. Those who should enter the battlefield had already entered. What followed was just a chaotic battle. There was nothing much to see. In the south of the northern region, a battleship broke through the sky towards the north. With the determination to cut off all means of retreat, Old He stood on the deck. His face was solemn, and his murderous aura was soaring. Remember the mobile website. Chapter 37-36. Ice River Valley, Ancient Rhino Realm, Tianyu Galaxy. Emperor Li and Emperor Yu were worried. They didn't know what to do. Kuan Mo and Bei Xian had left, saying that they were going to kill the master of the eastern region. After that, the Paragon level left as well, but they were left behind, trapped in the Divine Rune Grand Formation. It was not that the perfect warrior was kind-hearted and didn't kill the hostages. It was just that he was too scared to do anything when he heard the news of defeat. He fled at once. Since the master of the eastern region had won, then Lu Xiaobai would come to rescue the hostages. What was the point of killing the average warriors? It would only attract hatred and bring endless disasters to their kind. Therefore, the perfect warrior didn't do anything and just fled. The rune here was built by Gang Yu, who was very good at it. Emperor Li and Emperor Yu would have a hard time cracking it. Therefore, the warriors were trapped. Fortunately, most of them were on Emperor Li and Emperor Yu's side. The situation was under control. It had been several months since the war. Bei Xian and the others hadn't come back yet. Not a single perfect warrior was in sight. Emperor Li and the others were panicking. They heard that Lu Li was in the Ice River Valley. If Bei Xian and the other perfect warriors didn't come back, what if Lu Li came out? Crack the rune. The more Emperor Li thought about it, the more scared he was. He didn't care too much. He had to crack the rune and leave first. A gentleman would not stand under a collapsing wall. His life was more important. Whether Lu Li won or the major races of the Immortal Region won, he must find a way to stay alive. Several warriors who were infinitely close to the perfect warrior started to study the rune, trying to crack it. After a few days, Emperor Li and the others were troubled. The rune here was too complicated. It would take them years to crack it. What? In a cave, the crippled Zen master saw Emperor Li and the others gathered together and muttered with an ugly expression. He and another elder of the Lu Alliance looked at each other, and a glimmer of hope appeared in their eyes. It seemed that there were no more perfect warriors nearby in the recent months. Emperor Li and the others were trying to crack the rune. Did it mean that the tables were turning? That Lu Li had a chance to win? Somehow, the crippled Zen master was filled with confidence at the thought of Lu Li. This young man from the Heaven Reverse universe had brought him so many surprises. Now that the situation had changed, there was a chance that Lu Li could turn things around. The crippled Zen master and the others didn't think of fighting back. The Lu Alliance's experts, who were infinitely close to the Great Perfection realm, weren't here. They didn't have any experts. Fighting back was no different from courting death. The war was started by Old He and the others. They flew toward the North King city. Along the way, whenever they encountered a city with the Shell race, they would stop. Then they would send out several of the Absolute Realm to massacre the city and raze it to the ground. The members of the Shell race who could live in the small cities were definitely weak. Many of them were even mixed blood of the Shell race and other races. But Old He and the others did not care so much. More than half of the 14 at the Absolute Realm were immortal beasts. They were violent and cruel. In their minds, this trip to the northern region was not only to resolve matters, but also to avenge the king of the eastern region. Also, this time, they might not be able to go back. Therefore, they did not have so many concerns. They went on a bloodbath. Brutal. After flying for only 2 months, they had already massacred more than 30 cities. Many cities did not have many warriors of the Shell race, but they were still massacred. Not a single one was left. Furthermore, the cities were destroyed and reduced to ruins. When the news spread out, the northern region was in an uproar. The immortal region was in an uproar as well. In the past, the battle between the higher-ups would always end after the victor was decided. Then a race would be wiped out. Now, the victor had not yet been decided, but they were already starting to wipe out the entire race. Also, wasn't this too brutal? Many people who were not from the Shell race were also massacred. Was the king of the eastern region going to wipe out the entire northern region? Countless cities in the northern region were in chaos. As long as they were on the route of the battleship, the warriors, whether they were from the Shell race or not, quickly fled. Many small families even migrated towards the Do realm. They were afraid that the entire northern region would not be safe. The Bei family did not have any reaction. Bei Xian did not show himself, nor did he send out any announcements. Many warriors were bewildered. What were the warriors of the Bei family doing? They were still wondering if Bei Xian had already run away. Chapter 37:37. Bei Xian didn't run. He stayed in North King City. He was recovering and adapting to his new body. He was preparing for the upcoming battle. That's right. He was preparing for a huge battle. He was prepared to kill all the experts from the East region that came to attack. He had this ambition and confidence because he had a strong feeling that the king of the East region was already dead. This feeling didn't come out of nowhere. It was a judgment he made based on various situations. When the king of the East region and Kuinemo fought, he was at the side and had been paying attention. He had to pay attention because he was afraid that the king of the East region would suddenly attack him. According to his judgment, although the king of the East region and Kuinemo were suppressed by the demon-killing array, their battle strength was basically equal. After fighting for so long, both sides couldn't do anything to each other. They only injured each other and couldn't cause any fatal injuries. Otherwise, they wouldn't have fought for so long. After fighting for more than a day, the king of the East lost an arm, Kuinemo was cut a few times, and the king of the East was more seriously injured. Then there was the last blade. The demon-killing array seemed to be unable to withstand it. So, Kuinemo found an opportunity to break the array. This opportunity was actually given by the king of the East region on purpose. At that moment, the king of the East region cleaved with that blade. That blade's power was obviously several times stronger than before. It was even more than 10 times stronger. The king of the East region killed Mo with one blade. This was too illogical. If the king of the East region could release this blade earlier, why would he wait for so long? Wouldn't it be better to kill him in one move? If he found an opportunity to release this blade at the start of the battle, none of them would be able to escape. All of them would die. As for creating an opportunity, it was actually very simple. There were 20 perfected martial monarchs in the East region. If they risked their lives, they could easily create an opportunity. When he released that blade, Bei Xian felt that something was wrong with the king of the East region's body. At that moment, he felt that the king of the East region's aura suddenly disappeared. It was as if everything in the body had been sucked out. Also, when he released the heaven-swallowing divine skill, Bei Xian was shocked. After careful observation, he felt that it was slightly weaker than the legends. At that time, his soul spirit left his body. If the king of the East region was in his normal state, he believed that his soul spirit wouldn't be able to escape either. Bei Xian didn't think that his battle prowess was too strong, even weaker than the king of the Origin Realm. Back then, even the king of the Origin Realm couldn't escape, so how could he? Even if he could escape, if the king of the Eastern region chased after him, where could he run to in his soul form? But the king of the Eastern region didn't chase after him. This was not in line with the king of the East's personality. The king of the Eastern region was a vengeful person, not to mention the fact that he had killed 2 realm kings in one battle. This record was unprecedented, and even if the king of the Eastern region was heavily injured, he would still fight. In the end, he didn't chase after him, which meant that it was very likely that he wouldn't be able to catch him. In addition, there were many suspicious points. For example, they had a very high-level spy in the East King's mansion. He reported back that he had not seen the king of the East return. There was also the announcement from the Eastern region. This made Bei Xian feel that this was not the style of the king of the Eastern region. If it was the king of the Eastern region, he wouldn't have issued such a notice. Instead, he would have gone straight to the door. Even if he wanted an explanation from the king of the Western region and the king of the Southern region, he would have gone to the West King City and the South King City and demanded an explanation from the 2 realm kings. It wasn't like he hadn't done such a thing before. Therefore, Bei Xian suspected that the king of the Eastern region was already dead. In order to kill Mo, he had used up his remaining lifespan, or he was so heavily injured that he couldn't hold on any longer. Speaking of this, there was another suspicious point. If the king of the Eastern region wasn't dead, then he would definitely be recuperating outside. This kind of injury would probably take at least 1.5 years to recover, so he wouldn't be back so soon. All these suspicious points made Bei Xian 70% sure that the king of the Eastern region was already dead. Therefore, he issued the notice and took the initiative to challenge Bei Xian to prove whether the king of the Eastern region was dead or not. After he received the news that the great perfection realm cultivator of the Eastern region was massacring the city, he felt more at ease. This was obviously a bluff. If the king of the Eastern region was still alive, he definitely wouldn't do something like massacring ordinary people. He's really dead. Another half a month passed. In a secret castle in a mountain to the north of the North King's mansion, Bei Xian sneered when he received Bei Luan's report. Just now, the high-level spy from the East King's mansion sent news that Lord Yun and Lu Xiaobai were missing. In addition, many great perfection realm cultivators and some elites had also disappeared. This meant that the possibility of the king of the Eastern region being dead had reached 90%. Otherwise, how could Lu Xiaobai have disappeared? How could the elites of the large clans have coincidentally disappeared together? Pass the message. Bei Xian's eyes flickered. Pass the message to the king of the Western region and the king of the Southern region. Tell them that the king of the Eastern region is dead and ask them to come over and help. I will stand at the front and let them act according to the situation. Also, pass the message to the great perfection realm cultivators of the Northern region. Tell them that I have full confidence that we will definitely win this time. Tell them to all teleport to the North King City. Otherwise, we will kill them without mercy. The northern region had suffered heavy losses this time. In particular, the Great Perfection Realm cultivators of his faction had died. If he was at his peak, it would not matter. Now, he had to rely on the other Great Perfection Realm cultivators of the northern region to join forces. Otherwise, they would not even be able to defeat these 14 Great Perfection Realm cultivators. Balin immediately went to pass the message. After the Great Perfection Realm cultivators of the northern region received the message, they hesitated for a while. In the end, many of them chose to teleport to the North King City. Because if they did not come and Bei Xian died, the northern region would be finished. Naturally, they would also be finished. There were still some Great Perfection Realm cultivators in the northern region. In total, there were more than 20 of them left. Over a dozen had been teleported over these few days, including the Great Perfection Realm cultivators of the Bei family. There were 20 in total. If nothing unexpected happened, it should be enough. Of course, if the king of the eastern region was still alive, then this group of Great Perfection Realm cultivators would all die. When this group of Great Perfection Realm cultivators came over, Bei Xian met them and gave them a reassurance. He was 100% sure that the king of the eastern region was dead and told them to fight with peace of mind. When the time came, Bei Xian would personally lead the team to battle. Bei Luan explained part of the reason. This group of Great Perfection Realm cultivators was skeptical. However, since Bei Xian dared to gamble with his life and the lives of the Shell race, they were prepared to gamble as well. If they could win, they would be able to preserve their territory. In fact, their territory might even be larger. The king of the southern region and the king of the western region did not come. These two had almost been killed by Bei Xian previously. Why would they risk their lives again? Anyway, Bei Xian had already shouted and the experts of the eastern region had already been dispatched. This battle was unavoidable. They could only wait until the battle ended and see how it went. Another month passed. The battleship from the eastern region was not far from the North King City. Along the way, the Great Perfection Realm cultivators of the eastern region had slaughtered at least tens of millions of citizens. On the contrary, there were only a few million citizens of the Shell race. The rest had been implicated. The battleship suddenly disappeared. Following that, the dozen or so Great Perfection Realm cultivators also disappeared. The warriors of the North King City immediately retreated. There were not many warriors here because the original warriors of the North King City had all been slaughtered. The ones who had come now were the ones who had arrived later. They knew that the battle was about to begin. If they did not leave now, it was very likely that they would be buried within North King City, just like last time. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.